I am the senior officer for our sustainability community, and I am actually here to initially introduce Carl Berger from the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation. Carl, come on stage. Who will give us some brief remarks.
Hi.
You're mic'd here, so don't worry about it.
Oh, that's right. I'm good. Sorry about my baseball hat. I'm from LA and I'm cold. So I'm not being rude. I'm just really cold. Yeah, so this was really interesting and exciting process. Thank you for inviting me. We had a great lunch talking about all the projects. Every single one really is a winner. And if you made it this far, if you are, you're still a solver in our hearts, but we've selected a few on our side to move forward. So how we did that, we really thought about innovation. So like I'm really lucky because I'm in a foundation that works on problems and also solutions. Like some foundations do either or. We're constantly looking at both together. And so I have half of my week is just utterly depressing, and sometimes I want to just like go work in some startup somewhere and not have to worry about global problems. And then then I come here and I get inspired and think about you have an hour conversation with these young bright minds coming up with these incredible ideas, and you feel like, oh, we're totally going to get this. Like, we will be able to solve these humongous problems that face us. So innovation's a real key. So I run the Innovation, Media, and Technology program at the Dicaprio Foundation. So we have 6 programs. Mine is looking at these kind of early stage advanced projects that we think could both scale and introduce something disruptive that could create sort of a quantum leap in change. So those were the criteria we were thinking about. With great diversity of people from around the world. So it just is really remarkable what Solve was able to pull together. So one of the things that we're not giving a prize, contrary to popular belief. We are, however, we're inviting all the solvers in the Sustainable Cities Challenge that made it through to this next the Solver label to propose to the Dicaprio Foundation for my fund, the Innovation Fund. And we will be sort of looking and working with them on their proposals and invite them to pitch us, basically. So there's, it's going to be fun to field those. And but it's going to be a great journey for everyone who made it to the Solver Conference. So congratulate all of you.
Great, move over this side.
Oh, wait, which side?
So now, the moment you have all been waiting for, particularly those of you on this side of the room. We had 15 finalists pitch in the Sustainable Urban Communities Challenge, and those were selected out of an initial pool of 153. We have a wide range of different food and water solutions that are specifically relevant to urban communities. And in no particular order here, solvers, I will ask that you stand up and come to the stage to receive your certificate when your team name is called. We would like to award solver status to Robot Daisy. To Water Messiahs.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
To Copia.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Hey, great.
To City Taps. To Meal Flour. To Untapped. To Fresh Direct, who is not here in the room, but we can clap anyway. To Still Fresh, who is also not in the room, and those solutions are from Nigeria and the Philippines, respectively. And finally, to Water Rig. And as they all come up here, another round of congratulations for them while we take a quick photo. Yeah. Everybody together. Thank you all. Backstage left. And now, for another piece, I would like to introduce Joseph Lubin, the founder of Consensus.
Hello. Thank you. So in 2009, the Bitcoin project introduced two profound breakthroughs. Blockchain, a new kind of shared database technology, where because everyone has direct access to copies of the data, everybody can trust that the system is working properly and that no malicious group can cheat the system. And the original cryptocurrency, Bitcoin itself, the first peer-to-peer money system. The blockchain technology is the foundation, and Bitcoin was the first use case that anyone built upon it. In 2014, the Ethereum project extended this paradigm dramatically. Instead of tightly linking that single money and payments use case to the underlying blockchain, the Ethereum project built a general-purpose decentralized application platform where anyone could permissionlessly upload and interact with programs, and the programs were guaranteed to run and be uncensorable. Ethereum is the first world computer. By separating the protocol layer cleanly from the application layer, just like the web, and providing developer tools to make decentralized app development as familiar as web and mobile app programming, the Ethereum project has enabled millions of developers around the world to identify their own problems and solve them. So some of the core values of Solve include open innovation. Ethereum is an open source platform, and partnership. Because of the trustful nature of the blockchain, business is going to evolve on this planet from building siloed infrastructures for businesses on their own databases to building shared infrastructure across sectors, industries, value chains. The nature of business is going to become far more collaborative. Consensus is a member of Solve, and there are already many existing links between MIT and Consensus. We have some proud alumni of MIT at Consensus, including Kavita Gupta, our managing director for Consensus Ventures here today. HealthCoin, one of the existing solvers from the Chronic Disease Challenge, is part of Consensus. At Consensus, we're always looking for the best innovative solutions that use the Ethereum blockchain. With this in mind, we're proud to partner with MIT's Solve initiative and announce the Blockchain for Social Impact Coalition Prize. Up to 4 solvers, one for each of Solve's 2018 challenges, will be announced in May 2018 and will be awarded a fellowship. As a result of this fellowship, selected solvers will be invited to spend 2 months at least at one of Consensus's offices worldwide to work on their solutions, and will receive each $5,000 or more as seed funding, either as a grant or investment, and in the case of investment, it'll likely be more, and will participate in a capstone boot camp in Santa Barbara. Also, the selected solvers will have the opportunity to pitch key investors at the end of their fellowship for further investment and funding, including some members of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and Consensus Ventures. Consensus Ventures is the newly launched $50 million venture fund arm of Consensus, and Kavita Gupta leads this. Kavita Gupta has been involved with Solve from very early on as a judge and a senior advisor. And although this prize will start in full swing for the next set of challenges in May 2018, I'm excited to report that we would like to invite WaterRig, who has seconds ago been selected to be a sustainability solver, to be our first Blockchain for Social Impact Coalition Fellow. WaterRig will have the opportunity to spend at least 2 months in our offices and receive $5,000 of seed funding. Thank you.
This is the moment I've been, well, I'm sure you've all been waiting for, I've been waiting for months, which is the announcement of the Women and Technology Solvers. And to announce this, I cannot think of a better person than Ursula Burns, retired chairman and CEO of Xerox and the co-chair of the Women and Technology Challenge. Ursula is a woman of many, many firsts. She's a fierce advocate for girls in STEM, and she is so often on those inspirational lists of the top most powerful women of Forbes, Times Women Making History, etc. And she will be announcing the solvers before we sit down with her for a conversation with her. So please put your hands together for Ursula.
I've always wanted to do the Oscars, so this is the next best thing. Okay, so I have the honor and the privilege of announcing the winners of the Solve Challenge, the solvers as we call them. And I'm going to do this just by name. We want somebody, the representative, to walk up, shake your hands, give you a kiss. And first women and technology solver is True Trade. Where's True Trade? You're a man. What the heck? What the heck?
There you go. This is for you. Congratulations.
Take a picture.
I represent a lot of women.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll love you anyway, Will. The next is Saatchi, 100% biodegradable sanitary napkins. Okay, where's Saatchi?
Please stay on stage for a photo at the end.
She's coming, yeah, it's a long track up here, I see it. Very good, very good. Get your.
Here you go.
Let's go.
Maybe.
Move out of the way. Okay, stay next to him. We've now figured out the flow, how we're going to do this.
Yeah, actually, I would suggest that we don't take picture by picture.
Okay, good.
So you're the lucky
Because I have to go. Digital Citizens Fund.
Here, I'll stand here.
You're going to take a picture.
There you go.
Let's do it real fast. I don't like orders, so over here. Doctors Beyond Borders.
Do I get a kiss as well?
Yeah, you do. You married?
Yes.
I am too. You have to look there. Come on, we have to go fast. Got it.
Thank you.
Know Your Rights.
And she's not here, but she deserves
Know
a
your
big
rights.
applause.
Annie Cannon's Technology Program for Survivors. Jessica, good to meet you. Erase All Kittens. We actually like kittens, but so good to see you. Last but not least, Girls Who Build. Look at those.
There you go. Congratulations.
You were like, yeah. Thank you all. Congratulations. We're gonna do a picture?
Yes, let's get the
do it.
picture.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Let's go. Okay, me in the middle. Some people over this side.
Nice branding behind you.
Okay, stop. Got it.
Okay.
Let's do the tilt this way. Okay, this better side for him?
Come closer together.
Come on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Congratulations.
all of you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Go ahead. Congratulations. This is never easy. And it was a really tough choice, I have to say. I really commend the judges of the Women in Technology Challenge because this was a tough one. So thank you, Ursula, for this. Before inviting our moderator on stage for the conversation with Ursula, I wanted to make a very quick announcement. Solve is really excited to partner with Forbes and Women at Forbes for our Women and Technology Challenge. So as part of this partnership, Women at Forbes has invited our solvers to showcase their solutions on stage as part of the Forbes Under 30 Summit on October 1st. So I hope you're excited. And for the conversation with Ursula, I would like to invite to stage our partner in this endeavor, Christina Valletta, the VP of Women's Digital Network at Forbes Media. Welcome, Christina.
Where do you want to? Okay.
Thank you. Yes, we're so excited to be here today and so excited to be leveraging some of these solvers up at our event at MIT Media Lab and MIT Solve in October. But I know we don't have much time. I want to jump right in. And having just announced these winners and sort of all of the momentum here that we have towards the solving problems for women in tech using technology, and I know you're very passionate about this, what do you think is so critical about technology in terms of getting more women into the digital economy and having economic prosperity?
I think that technology is, we talked about it when energy became widely available, when the internet became widely available. Now, the integration of all of these things into technology actually democratizes the world, right? So it almost doesn't matter where you are, even though there are some hills if you're not in a fully developed nation. But it doesn't matter where you are. And in many cases, what your fundamental background is, what we've allowed with technology is the opening up of opportunity and access. Mm-hmm. And for women in particular, who have like a triple sets of responsibilities, they have generally to care for their families, mm-hmm. They have to be the fundamental structure of communities, and they have to also earn, oftentimes, or help earn to support their families. Having technology available to them with this additional set of burdens or opportunities is, I think, just key. The other thing is that you can do it often without being seen, and still for women in the world, being seen is a detriment. It could be considered a detriment.
Right.
For me, it's not a detriment. You don't think it's a detriment, but literally it actually removes some of just the physical issues that you have to deal with in being a woman. So.
Right. Yeah, I think there's so often, here we think of women in tech as the women out in Silicon Valley or all the tech companies throughout the U.S., but for so many, the world, it's really about just having access to that technology, to have access to
most of the women in technology are not in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even here, you think about it, when I was listening to some of the winners, there was one that won part of the debate, I wasn't in it, but was whether it was tech. And it's interesting how the solution doesn't necessarily have to be a tech solution, but access to that solution, communication to that solution, pricing and the commerce infrastructure behind it is all around tech. It's all around thinking broader. And I think this is a magical time for women, and particularly if we can get them more participating in the development of some of the solutions.
Absolutely. Do you think, there's so much what are you most optimistic after hearing some of these pitches? And I know that there are a lot of new conversations right now, brave women speaking out about some of the problems in tech. But do you think we're at a turning point? And is there anything that you've seen with this project this year, being chair of it with Inder Nui, that you are really optimistic about, that we are at a turning point?
Yeah, I think that we've been at a turning point for probably 15 years. It's just a really slow turn. And I mean that really. But when I started thinking about what my career was going to be like. I didn't even know that there was a thing called a career. But once I got to think about that, the options that I had were very narrow. I was good in math, and I was told I had a couple of options. One was a nun, teacher, and a nurse, right? Those were the options. And that sounds funny, but it was really, that was the discourse that we had. This is where you go. This is the kind of things that you do if you're good at these kinds of subjects. And so part of the turn started way back then. I graduated from high school in '76. So this is ancient times. To now is that people actually have conversations about options that are very broad, global, multifaceted, definitely tech-based. But so we're a little bit in the turn. Then we actually started opening up options to actually engage. So you go to college, we're going to actually engage you with a little bit of the turn. So on, so on, and so forth. So we're still turning, but I think, and I think it'll still take a while. I think we are years away, unfortunately, from equality. What is the word? You know, I was just watching Billie Jean King on TV do this thing with about the movies coming out with Bobby Riggs, and you think about how long ago that was, and we still are having discussions about
in the 70s.
70s, yeah.
And I think at that point it was like women weren't allowed to have credit cards
That's
in
right.
the 70s,
Yes,
you know, like things like that. So I guess hopefully we'll be able to put our seatbelts and go really fast soon, but we are making progress.
You know, the great news about any challenge in the world is that it requires solutions. It requires solvers. If it was all set, I guess we'd be fat sitting on, eating grapes.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not. It's not all peeled grapes. It's not all set. We have to work on it. And women are going to be a big piece of this conversation, but not the only piece. Men are unbelievably important here.
Absolutely.
They are,
everybody's got to be in on the conversation. So actually, this year, speaking of progress, there are 32 female CEOs on the Fortune 500 list. And this is a historic high. But despite that progress, this number actually only represents 6.4% of all CEOs. And with you leaving Xerox, actually, there's no black women and only 2 women of color on the list. And
you have both
similar
of them,
to other companies.
You have both of them with you in the next day, so it's really good.
So what do you think that more businesses and more leaders can do to close this gap from that perspective?
Yeah, I'm asked this question a lot, and my smart aleck answer is generally get the guys on the stage and ask them, because they have all of the positions.
Yeah.
Or get the boards, which are generally guys, on the stage and ask them, because they have all the positions. But I think that this is one, I've said this before, there is a tidal wave of women coming. Mm-hmm. It's not surprising that there are only 2 women of color. The big problem, the big issue would be if we only had 2 a couple of years from now. Mm-hmm. That would be surprising, right? Because there has to be a first of everything. So I'm the first African American, India is the first Asian Indian. Got it. So this is all good. The big question, and if you look at the demographics of the population, it's not that odd to believe that I would be the only African American woman. Because in order to do it, you generally have to finish 4 years of college. You have to be in a field that's not marketing, communications, or HR, so on, so on, so on, so on. So you keep whittling down, and you get to there are 5 people out of the 50,000. So the hit rate is actually pretty good if they found me, if you think about it just mathematically. The problem with it is that was 10 years ago or 15 years ago that I got. Now the question is, so where's the rest of them? And I think businesses, primarily businesses, and the business leaders, which are primarily men, and boards, which are primarily men, but women who sit and sprinkle, have to actually ask themselves why not. I was at a board meeting the other day, and they were explaining to me and to the whole board why they couldn't get more academics. This was an academic board meeting, teaching black women, women of color, people of color, teaching. And I said they couldn't find them. And I said, well, let's try this. Let's try it a different way. You can't hire another soul in the company until you find a diverse board. That's it. That's what we're going. I guarantee you, if I told you that, we'd find the people, right? You'd figure some out. You may make some big mistakes, but so we actually think of it as we will do it without a huge amount of work. I'm not going to change the structure to allow it to happen. And I think if you change the structure, it will happen. And we have to kind of break this whole, but they have to have the 50 different years and touch all these functions, et cetera. MIT is a place that I actually am, in true transparency, on the board of MIT, and I picked my boards very specifically because it's a magical place with its what I call open access. So access to many different people who would not be naturally considered here, to actually have a place in the solution of the problem. So I love it for that reason.
That's fantastic. I know we were saying it's like, well, just make sure you have to
make sure
have,
you have
it's
to.
a requirement
Right.
of being on the board.
I guarantee you would
yeah.
figure it out if you said you couldn't spend
Yeah.
another dollar until you got it done.
Well, I always think it's really interesting that there's so much research that says that companies that have a diverse board are more profitable and they're more innovative. And I always think, well, money speaks, doesn't it? Why doesn't that work? But what were some of the things that you did when you were at Xerox to get more diverse
First of all, I think that
culture?
the argument that they would be more XYZ is not one that is a useful argument to have.
Yeah,
Because
it doesn't seem to be working at all.
But there are very successful,
Yeah.
very, very successful, male-dominated, historically white, or historically women, or historically men
Right.
companies. So I actually think that there are two things that you balance in life as a business leader, but as a person. One is what's good for the economics of the company or the structure of the organization, and the other thing is what's right, what's just. And I eliminate the what's good for this company for this conversation. It's just. We're half the friggin' population of the world. Everybody in the room had one. They had to interact with one, right? They know these are not Martians. They were actually entrusted with raising them and making them very much who they are.
Right.
This is half the population that we actually give, that someone gave the right, God gave the right to actually physically have them and bring them into the world and care for them. And we've now decided that they're not worth a whole lot. I just think it's kind of a ridiculous set of math that we're going through. So all of this stuff about, oh my God, you'll be more profitable, I'm like, yeah, maybe. But the fact of the matter is we're half the world, more than half the world right now.
Right.
And we're great. We do what men do. And oftentimes better, right?
Right.
And there's some things that we don't do as well. And it's kind of a crazy conversation to try to justify why this is,
Right.
I'm going to justify because we're more profitable. I'm like, not a point. So what do we do at Xerox? We took all of this other stuff out.
Cool.
The middle out. So we figured out that, most companies figured this out, is that we don't dislike women. We don't know them very well in a business environment. We don't know, so we know men. We know where to go to get them, particularly young engineers. We know where to get them. We know how to nurture them when they come in. We just didn't know anything. So we said, well, let's start from the beginning. We know nothing. So let's get some women and actually engage other women, and not all in our company, and understand what does it take to actually survive and change. Survive long enough so you can actually participate in change.
Right.
Because that's what happens as well, is we get them in and then they give up after we mess it up so badly that they can actually go somewhere else.
Right.
How do we actually get them engaged and start managing just like a P&L, right? Just like, so we need more P, less L. What the hell is it that contributes to the P? What contributes to the L? Let's eliminate that and focus on the other bit.
It's so important. It's more than just checking off the boxes of we did this.
Yeah,
It's
this
really
is
getting
not-
into the culture. And
Part of it is also that there are not a lot of women who how do I say this? The women who graduate from college with the right foundational skills are at a premium, meaning, and so you got to fight for them.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to, and I say this to all mothers of children who are girls, let me tell you what you should study, hands down, engineering. Because if engineer STEM, generally, not STEAM, STEM. The A part, I think, is really important. My daughter is an A'er, but that's not what we're talking about here today. I'm talking about people who are immersed and comfortable with science, technology, engineering, and math. If you do that, you can get a job. And by the way, if you do it in the company that you're in, you'll be treated better than the average guy who walks in for a while. So I say take advantage of it, right? Just literally engage, run towards it. Companies want you. It's hip to have you. If they don't have you, it's not hip. Let's put it that way. So I say go for it.
Yeah.
For the girl, go for it. And I get a lot of questions like, well, I'm not welcome. I feel uncomfortable. I say this is your strength. Yeah. You have grown up around men. You've grown up around being the smaller number. You've grown up around being different. These people are generally uncomfortable with all those things. This is exactly the time to rock and roll. So,
rock and roll. That's great. Final question, sort of looking at some of these solvers that are coming up today, they often are just starting companies. Do you have any advice for them on their path forward in terms of like building an inclusive culture from the start, or how to face some of the challenges they may face ahead of them?
Two. One is fearlessness, and I don't mean recklessness. I mean, you'll hear a lot of very logical, well thought out, theoretically correct reasons why whatever you're doing is not possible or not likely. Some of it is not going to be possible or likely, but the success is not always in the end, it's in the process. So I just say be fearless in moving it. The second is the heart is bigger than the mind. Mm-hmm. This is something that I'm afraid of with tech. This is why women have to start to populate more broadly.
Right.
Tech companies, roles, all across the board. Everything from English majors to science majors should be in tech companies, because we've gotten this down to a math equation. So you can do just about anything if you make money. And the method is not really that important. We can actually have these great tech companies that act poorly.
Right.
They behave poorly. They just do. They lost sight of what their parents taught them, right? Mm-hmm. And they kind of go into work and they say, I am so good and so big and I'm so rich and talented, I can do anything I want. Somebody else said that. That's just not the case.
Right.
And so the dollars are important, but they are not the most important thing at all. I think you can make enough money and also do good. And I guarantee you're probably going to see, it's going to seem like you're leaving a couple of dollars on the table by doing good. Mm-hmm. In the long run, you're not. Yeah. So fearlessness and the heart is actually bigger than the checkbook or the mind right now, particularly in our time in the country and in the world.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for leading by example in that as well.
Can I get up and go?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, every time I hear Ursula speak, I'm like, yeah. All right, the pitches for the next two challenges start now. And the youth skills and workforce of the future is going to be here in this room, and the brain health is going to be in room 207. Now, everyone listen up. I have a challenge for you. How quickly can we get the brain health people into room 207 and everyone else who's into youth skills and workforce of the future to come closer to the front? Go.
Welcome to the Youth Skills and Workforce of the Future pitch session. I hope everyone has enjoyed themselves thus far today during our Solve Challenge finals. Let's give another big round of applause for our selected solvers of our last two challenges. In May, we asked the world a question. How can disadvantaged children and youth from around the world learn and prepare for the workforce of the future by learning the skills that they need to thrive in the 21st century? We received 494 solutions from around the world, from 84 countries. Of those, our panel of judges who are seated in front of us today have selected 20 to pitch their solutions in front of you here in New York. Our 20 teams come from 9 unique countries around the world and have traveled near and far to be with us today. Each finalist will have 3 minutes to pitch, followed by 3 minutes of Q&A with our judges. I will be very strict with timing because we do have an awful lot of finalist teams to go through tonight. So once the finalist has reached their 3 minutes and a chime goes off, I will interrupt if they go over that time. And same goes for the Q&A. Unfortunately, due to the number of finalists that we have for this challenge, we will not be able to do an audience Q&A at the end of the session. However, we would encourage you to think about which solution you think is most viable, most feasible, most scalable, and the best one that you think is presented today. And keep that in mind for audience voting, which will happen at the end of the session. A couple of great highlights to remember about this challenge. We are privileged to have two amazing co-chairs of this challenge, Her Majesty Queen Rania of Jordan, as well as Maureen Powell-Jobs. In addition, there are two prizes available for solvers who are selected for this challenge, and they include the Atlassian Foundation Prize, which is up to $1 million in US funding, that's in USD, and then $1 million is also being offered from the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So there's a lot of money up for grabs tonight, and we're excited to see the pitches. So, without further ado, let's get started with the pitches, and our first pitch is from 40K Plus.
According to the UNESCO, there are 250 million children around the world who can't read, write, or count. The workforce of the future has to start with building the most critical skills in children's most foundation years. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Clary Castrician, and I'm very proud to be representing the 40K Plus team today. 40K Plus's novelty lies in three key areas. Firstly, when it comes to educational content, there is a lot of educational content out there, but very rarely is it available in developing world conditions, mapped to developing world curriculum, in the languages in that environment, and for people working in the villages out there. So what our role is to license third-party content, map it against curriculum objectives, and then make it work offline in a village. When it comes to technology, again, often, as Ursula was saying before, accessibility is the key. Technology is still, unfortunately, too expensive for children living in villages. So we've overcome this challenge by maximising the utility of low-cost technologies such as tablets and Raspberry Pis to be able to make this content work in the village. And lastly, with delivery. We believe that education has to be human-centred. So the way that we've designed it is that we've got a dynamic learning structure where children are invited to come every day, and we've reinvented the role of the teacher so that we can hire locals to play a role of facilitator and motivator for the children. It's adaptable. As a platform, we can adapt it to different subjects. At the moment, it's totally focused on developing English, but it can be adapted to different subjects and to different countries. It's viable. We charge for the service. In India, that's $3 per month per child, and in Cambodia, that's $5 per child per year. And lastly, it's data-driven. Everything is outcome-focused, and every time a child logs into the system, we track their progression rates against target levels. Now, we've still got a long way to go and a lot of challenges to overcome, but we've made some very solid early progress. We've proven through baseline testing accelerated learning outcomes. We've got a strong sample of 3,000 children that will be enrolled by the end of the year, and through careful partnership selection in our second country, we've been able to slash the cost of delivery to make it affordable and accessible. So, ladies and gentlemen, we would be delighted to join the Solve community. We see huge opportunity to form new partnerships for more effective distribution and more accelerated research and development. We've got a huge dream to reach 250,000 children in the next 5 years, and joining Solve could be the critical next step in that journey. Thank you very much.
Lisa.
So talk to us about your outcomes. You say enrollment is a key outcome. What are the learning outcomes?
So our program has 6 programs that are mapped against grade levels for grades 1 to 6 in the different countries that we work in. Where there is still gaps in those national curriculums, we map to the Common European Framework for Languages to ensure that children are getting global exposure as well. Thank you.
So just building on that question, how are you measuring children's outcomes? So how do you know that as a child, I am making measurable progress in reading, writing, or whatever I'm learning?
So we run 2 baseline tests per year. Firstly is on reading and writing, and we use EGRA for that. And then we use the Cambridge Young Learners Test for speaking and listening skills as well. And we map the children that go through our program against children in similar government schools who don't go through it, to be able to map the delta between how our program operates. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi. Do you have any outcome criteria around teaching of character and 21st century skills, as well as pure curriculum?
One of the things that we've noticed in a country like India is that traditional teaching methods can be very much chalk and talk. It's rote learning based, so we haven't figured out yet how to actually measure the softer skills such as development of self-confidence and leadership. But we believe that the peer-led model that we've embedded in the way that the dynamic class structure works is really amplifying the leadership of these young children. Thank you.
You talk about the sustainable business model behind this platform. Tell me more about that.
So we made a huge pivot 5 years ago to go from essentially a charity to a social enterprise, and it came from the basis about really asking our customers, our beneficiaries, what they were willing to pay for the service. So in India, we did a whole bunch of surveying across a number of villages. They told us that they were happy to pay about $3 per month. So the challenge that we faced then was how can we really drive down the cost of delivery to break even in a village at that price point. So we can break even in a village when we've got 35 children enrolled at $3 a month. So it's about $100 a month that we've got to break even. Cambodia is much cheaper. We can do better utility because we're operating through the government school. So the schools are bigger, so up to 300 or 400 children, and those children pay $5 a year, so it's about $1,500 per year of revenue, and that can cover all the costs involved at the coalface. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Bagosphere.
Hi, my name is Zihan, CEO of Bagosphere. You know that higher education is broken when 70% of college students do not finish college, when 25% of entry-level jobs in 2016 remain unfilled. And when you see job ads like this, looking for ice cream scoopers with college qualifications. And that's why we created Bagosphere, a faster, smarter way for disconnected youth to launch transformational careers. We call this model last mile education. An example of last mile education is best told the story of Lisa. When I met Lisa 4 years ago, Lisa was a high school graduate who could not afford to go to college. She was selling vegetables in the local market, and she was earning $30 a month. After joining Bagosphere's job preparation bootcamp, she was able to find a job as a call center agent and now works for a Fortune 500 company earning $300 a month. With that, Lisa is a much more confident person. She bought a motorcycle for her parents. She's now studying business at a local college. We helped change Lisa's life trajectory. We did something counterintuitive. The program is not free for Lisa. After the screening process, Lisa went through a screening application process with a microfinance, and she got a Study Now, Pay Later loan from one of our microfinance partners. And more than that, Lisa sees our program as an investment, not a dole-out. And when she graduated and got a job, she repaid the loan in 8 months. And now she's part of a growing pool of alumni who are willing to guarantee new loans for students coming through our program. Lisa is part of 1,000 Bagosphere alumni, all of which majority are female and majority are 18 to 25 years old of age. And we're very proud to have an 85% job placement rate 90 days after graduation. We work very closely with employer partners to deconstruct their needs, to find out what skills and competencies they need to create a successful program. And we're very proud to be the #1 recruitment partner for one of the largest outsourcing companies in the province of the Philippines. From 1,000 alumni, we want to bring life-changing, transformational last-mile education to 10,000 youth over the next 3 years. And to do this, we're working with universities to leverage on their teaching resources as well as their facilities. And we're working with an international NGO to replicate our model in Vietnam. We are also very excited to be launching new bootcamp programs in 2 new employment sectors, namely retail and financial services. And we're working with one of the largest healthcare and beauty care chain stores in Asia to do that. So I'm here today to ask for your support to be part of the SOLVE community. We're trying to build a licensing model so that we can grow much faster, but also make sure that we still maintain the quality that we have achieved so far. So we're looking for Jedi Masters, mentors, the technology and partners to build this platform. And I hope you could work with me so that we create more successful, transformative stories like Lisa in the next 3 years. Again, my name is Zihan from Berger. Thank you very much.
Could you explain a little more how do you organize the training, and also how do you survey the skills or traits that are in demand?
We first look at what the employers need, and that's the starting point.
How do you do that?
So we go and talk to the employees. I mean, we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the employers, and we help to deconstruct what they need. And we looked at what kind of test assessments that they do to try to and bring that into our curriculum. Just a very quick summary of what we do in the curriculum is that we teach the problem and not the tools. Meaning the teacher comes to the classroom and say, today you're going to learn how to deal with an irate customer, and not about how you're going to say the right words or the right pronunciation rules. So it's about teaching the problem rather than teaching the tools. And how we screen our students, we have a process where we interview the students' motivation as well as the baseline, their skills, according to what the employers need. So it's always about looking at what kind of students can be successful in a relatively short amount of program, and making sure that we have the teachers in place that are more like facilitators to make sure that they succeed.
What happens when the student can't repay the loan? So they're already disadvantaged. How do you address that issue? So
that's where we have a risk-sharing facility with the microfinance, and that's where philanthropy has a part to play in making sure that we can have a long-term process for this model to be overall sustainable. So we have the risk-sharing agreement with the microfinance. If the students default, with valid reasons, the loan will be absolved.
And what about... I was just going to say, what if they don't have valid reasons for defaulting?
Well, there is a predetermined time in which they have to repay. If they don't, we still, as part of what we do and as an education institution, we want to be part of. We want them to be part of this alumni. So there's no negative consequence that we provide to them. However, the microfinance partner would have to put them on the blacklist.
Oh, sorry. Just a quick question on just as you grow, how you're going to keep quality in your sites, whether it's the training or also the employers, academics.
Yeah. So as I said, we are working with universities and international NGOs, so we recognize that we can't do everything ourselves. There's a lot of things that we need to integrate into our model. And so going forward, where we are strong at is in the curriculum design as well as the delivery and the teacher training that we provide to our current teachers. So that's where we want to be very focused in making sure that we can replicate that. And so leave all the other physical infrastructure, partnerships so that we can grow much faster. And I think one thing that we also do is we have a platform where we can design the data so that we can see whether we are improving or not.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Books First Bites.
Hi, my name is Tarek. I'm the founder of Rumi. And our mission is to remake global skills training by leveraging two very important trends. First, you can learn basically anything for free online these days. And second, the cost to deliver it is plummeting fast. And we put these two together in our first project a few years ago in Haiti. This is Paula. She's holding a low-cost tablet that has a full curriculum of organized, free learning content loaded onto it, such that it works totally offline and is chargeable cheaply with solar power. Now, one analysis found that we were delivering content 100 times as efficiently simply by moving from shipping lots of paper books to offline digital delivery, or what I like to call a leapfrog from books to bytes. A key part of our model is that we always work with local partner organizations because we can specialize in building low-cost, flexible technology that they can't do, and they, in turn, can focus on localization of content and programming and implementation on the ground, something that they're much better at that we can't do. And this model has allowed us to scale in just a few years to over 20 countries. So Junior Achievement, for example, is using it in Kenya for financial literacy training, which they've identified as a key skill set that employers there want. In Jordan, UNICEF is using it in the Makani centers and growing it to do refugee youth skills programs. In each of these programs, even though it's offline, when they connect every so often, we get back all the offline data. So we understand student progress. We understand gender equality of access, things you can't know with paper. And even though we're a nonprofit, we have a sales model to sell all of this to all of our partners at cost, which we've been doing. And this business model now is backed by some of the best in tech. Y Combinator, Google.org. We won the Google Impact Challenge earlier this year. The Boston Consulting Group designed our impact studies. And recently, Harvard Business School produced an in-depth case study on the Rumi model for sustainability that they're using to teach now in classrooms. And when you look at all the people being impacted, you might almost wonder how we're doing it across so many places. And part of the way we're able to do that across different cultures and areas is that we started to figure out what our partners wanted, and we started to connect that with companies whose highly skilled workforces could work on curating from the vast sea of learning content online into structured, highly vetted, and quality curriculum in different areas. And what this is allowing us to do is that now we understand what works offline when they sync. We start to then connect that back to the volunteer community so that we can apply volunteer energy to the most impactful areas. Now, the reason we're here today is because in every one of our markets, this transition is happening to low-cost smartphones. And we want to use the funding to basically take our software and move it into app form so it can work on any low-cost device. And our first partner for this is Roshan Telecom, the largest telco in Afghanistan, which will load it into programs for children there that can scale to millions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tariq, thanks very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
My question is around financial sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
As you move off the Rumi tablet and open the content up to a more diverse range of platforms, will that adversely affect your sustainability, given that you've been relying upon sales of the tablet to date?
Very good question. It's a really good question. There's technically a slight difference with the tablet, which is that because we integrate with the manufacturer, it's integrated into the firmware. That allows us to do certain things that are impossible to do with any app version that's loaded aftermarket. So for example, if you factory reset a Rumi device, it's still a Rumi device, rather than going back to basic Android. And that allows us higher security, so it cannot be repositioned, less black market sales potential, better child safety, it can't be repositioned, do anything but pre-approved content. And so you add all those up, for large partners like the ones I mentioned, our view is that the freemium model will work because they'll still pay us for it. But then for the smaller ones that we can't access, because the market's fragmented, the ones who want 5s and 10s, they'll have access to Rumi Lite that they can install aftermarket on their own devices.
Can you say a little more about the local partners? Who is going to select and categorize the content to make sure it fits the local demand?
It's almost always the local partner that does the heavy lifting.
But give examples of local partners.
So a great example of that, so Junior Achievement. So they're using it for financial literacy in Kenya. They're already teaching programs for financial literacy. They know what they're doing. They know what employers want. They're the partner that does this already on the ground. They want to implement technology. They don't know where to start. If they try to build it in-house, it's too difficult. They're starting from scratch. So we give them a platform where they can organize and structure what learning content is plopped offline fully, and then they can see it synchronized later and see data on how it's being used and adapt. Now, the crowdsourcing component just gives them an additional ability to say, hey, we want content in these areas. Thousands of people go online and they start to meet it, which is kind of a win-win because there's a lot of people around the world who want to help, not just by giving money. So that model gets better and better over time. But to answer your question, it's always the local partners who are deciding what they want on it, and they're doing the final layer of choosing what goes offline, because they're usually educational institutions to begin with.
Nafis?
Yeah, just a quick question going back to the content. So relying on open educational resources in English works very, very well. There's a lot of content, but what about sort of more, new languages like Arabic? Is there enough open educational resource content for partners to make use of high-quality content?
One of the things we've learned is that there's a fallacy that everyone thinks you need to take and translate content from English and other things. When we first started doing the crowdsourcing, it was for Syrian refugee education programs. People around the world started doing work on it. People in Cairo, people in Qatar, contributing their skills. And it turns out there's a lot of NAFHAM, Tahrir Academy, a bunch of ones that are in the Middle East that were basically versions of Khan Academy and other things. And we've found that there's a lot of really good content. The challenge is, finding it, organizing, and curating it, because YouTube has great learning videos in different languages. It also has cat videos. So,
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Digital Superheroes Academy.
My name is Allison Sanders, and my team is the Bandek Foundation in Thailand. For 15 years now, we have helped thousands of disadvantaged kids throughout Southeast Asia to access health, education, and safety services. And now we're developing the Digital Superheroes Academy, a digital platform that will teach these kids life skills in the form of superpowers. And this is Pim. Pim is 7 years old, and she is from Myanmar. She lives in a slum in Thailand where her parents work on a construction site. She has never been to school. Statistics show that Pim will probably start working on a construction site herself when she turns 10 years old. What Pim needs is something that will make a difference for her future. We call these life skills. Life skills are a mix of knowledge and soft skills that can be easily codified and taught to children. For example, Burmese migrant children like Pim, living in Thailand, are one of Asia's largest groups of out-of-school children. So we teach these kids this superpower of education. We teach them that they have the right to an education and how to get the papers they need to go to school. Today, 98% of the kids we work with are successfully enrolled in Thai public schools. We teach these life skill sessions to kids through face-to-face sessions with our teachers and social workers who go to the camps and slums in person. We've been doing this with several thousand kids with 15 life skills for 3 years now. But there are 60,000 kids like Pim living in construction site camps throughout Thailand, and thousands of more kids living in other urban slums. So we need to be scalable. We're developing the Digital Superheroes Academy, an online platform that will teach these life skills to kids and make them available open source on smartphones and tablets. They'll be available in the kids' own native languages, and of course we've developed back-end monitoring in order to track what's working best. We'll also add new soft skills superpowers that will become increasingly difficult to access in our digital age. Soft skills like diversity over discrimination and critical thinking skills. We're officially partnering with UNICEF Thailand in order to assess the impact of this tool, and several telecom providers in Asia are interested in giving free phone minutes and data to the target families in order to guarantee incentive and successful scale-up. By joining the MIT Solve community, we'll be able to share our experiences and lessons with other change makers, as well as experience the expertise and resources of the MIT Solve community that will help us achieve full potential for impact and scale. We have already seen the impact of these life skills, and now we are ready for scale. Thank you.
Talk to us about the scale. Where do you want to scale? How will you scale? What's your plan?
Thank you so much for asking one of the questions I hoped I would be asked. So at the moment, we are currently in pilot phase, which is very exciting. We started about 1 month ago. We'll be able to reach about 200 kids in the next 2 months. Again, this is pilot scale. So essentially, implementation is breaking down into 2 main models at the moment. First, introduction to the app among all of the kids we currently have contact with throughout Thailand. and then the second phase of how they access it throughout the future. We work with a lot of different populations of disadvantaged children. One of the main ones are economic migrants. So one of the greatest challenges of our work is ensuring that we have long-lasting impact, even when the kids have migrated to a random construction site in the far south province or somewhere in Bangkok. So in phase one, becoming trained on the app and how to use it will lead to a lot of new lessons in phase two of continued access to the app. So concretely, we'll start this with all of our current beneficiaries, which will be able to use, who will be able to use it on smartphones in future construction sites or other urban slums and share it with other kids. We'll also partner with 10 other NGOs strategically who have large numbers of target children beneficiaries in Myanmar, the south of Thailand, and Cambodia.
Does the app rely on any level of literacy? Must a child be literate in their own language?
Another one of my favorite questions. Exactly. So a huge part of this app is that it will be available in the kids' native languages, and it does not assume literacy. So there's a superhero like giant ear icon that you can tap on next to every single piece of text in order to hear just audio.
How do you solve the issue of affordability or access to tablets or smartphones?
Of course.
Because you do not deal with that aspect.
Of course. Yeah. So through our research partnership with UNICEF, we were able to conclude earlier this year that 80% of these kids have immediate access to a smartphone. At least one member of their immediate family owns a smartphone, so they do have this access. Our teachers and social workers will train them on how to use the app through a tablet, and then we'll make sure that they're able to access smartphones whenever they tell us they're about to migrate elsewhere.
And what are you doing to truly verify the skills were acquired around these life skills?
So at the very beginning of each app, the kids answer standardized baseline questions that allow us to capture data on their knowledge assessment. So we have baseline data on what their initial knowledge was of a given life skill, as well as at the end, whenever they play an interactive game showing what exactly they did take away from the life skill.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Next up, we have Fair Play for Gateway.
Fabrice Villachet for Passerelle Numérique. So we still live in a world where social status strongly determine academic performance and subsequently access to quality tertiary education. How can the most underprivileged youth climb this often insurmountable obstacle and successfully join the workforce of the 21st century? We believe we found a solution with games. Our intuition is that games can objectively assess talents in a non-discriminatory way and facilitate a fair orientation process. How? By moving from one paradigm to another one, we aim to transform paper into mobile device, academic written test into a new game experience, where unique tests, like mainly MCQ, will be transformed into a succession of practical activities. Written answers will become like do, solve, and manipulate production, where multiple intelligences could be assessed instead of one. And finally, grading system and performance will disappear in favor of profile analysis. Our solution has to combine the best of hardware and software tech. Hardware needs to be adaptable to any kind of situation and climate we can encounter on the field. And software will be mainly based on a carousel of game, including data analysis and machine learning, in order to establish gamer profile or happy clone profile. Finally, the whole solution has to be user-friendly, easy to handle by everyone, everywhere. Due to our extensive field experience, we feel that it's the right moment to do it. But how? Partnership? Partnership seems to be in MIT Solve community's DNA as much as PN1 since the beginning of our story in Cambodia 12 years ago. We are looking for partners to transform our intuition into an operational solution by the end of 2018. We strive for cooperation with academic and technical experts in order to support our team during the different steps of development. And finally, beyond our needs, we feel this solution could also benefit to other educational nonprofits and be economically valuable for private universities corporate, and for-profit education providers. We live in a world where underprivileged youth, like anyone, have personal abilities and dreams which deserve to be acknowledged. Together, we can transform this unfair academic selection process into a student-centered orientation process, where no one is set aside or left behind. Thank you.
How can you ensure fairness criteria? You mentioned fairness, but how do you apply that? And primarily, this is for use by whom? By employers?
So the idea, it's like, for us, it's to, so we have a program based in Cambodia, Vietnam, and Philippines. And we have selected some underprivileged youth to join our program. It's an ICT training, 2 years or 3 years. And we are looking for this kind of, like underserved beneficiaries. So this is the first answer. And then we have several NGOs having the same kind of objective in Cambodia. So the idea, the first solution is to develop this tool for NGO like ours and maybe for some other partners that we can have in the field. And the idea of the fairness is like, we know that games, everybody can play today. It's like quite easy. And we know there is like not that much link between your social status and your abilities to play compared to your social status and your academic performance. So this is why we feel this solution is fair.
Tom.
Why would a 10-year-old play your game and not Minecraft or FIFA?
So we can think to include Minecraft in our solution. It's one of the games that we have in mind, for example, or Minecraft-like regarding the copyright things. And
Nafis? Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Why are you limiting the game to IT skills? It would seem to me like a game is also useful to assess some of those more soft life skills that were spoken about before. Is that part of the plan, or is this only for IT skills?
No, the idea is to first develop the solution based on our own area of expertise. That is, today it's ICT, but we are also potential partners that have like kind of business school or like art academy. So first step of development will be based on our area of expertise, and then later we'll spread and share with other partners that we are already identified.
How many businesses are keen to use games to identify their next employees?
Can you repeat?
How are businesses taking to this? Are they open to using the data from games to recruit their next employees?
Some partner companies have this kind of like recruitment process, and if they are looking for profile, talents for tomorrow, like junior developer, they have this choice to have this kind of traditional way to recruit people, or we can play also. And by choosing the right parameter or variable inside the application, we'll be able maybe to have this kind of profiles that can fit with the needs of a company.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Generation.
Good afternoon. My name is Mona Morshed, and I'm the founder and president of Generation. Generation is a global program that recruits, trains, and places youth in careers. And then once they're on the job, we measure the return on investment for both our graduates and their employers. Generation launched 2.5 years ago. Today, we are live in 5 countries, 50 cities, and over 120 locations. We have over 4 sectors which we serve, spanning healthcare, tech, customer service, and sales, and skilled trades. And we have 16 professions across them. We have 14,000 graduates, and we have 1,400 employer partners. Our learners are typically secondary school degree holders who have faced significant adversity in their lives, ranging from poverty to single parenthood to domestic violence. We have an 83% job placement rate, and our 6-month retention in the first job is over 70%, with even more that have gone on to their second job. Most importantly, we can now demonstrate return on investment. Our graduates are earning 2 to 6 times in income what they were earning prior to Generation. And cumulatively, they've earned over $50 million in the last 2.5 years. Our employers are also registering benefits. So over 88% of our employers say that our graduates deliver higher productivity and quality outcomes and longer retention than their job peers. So how does generation work? We have 7 components that are a holistic system. I'll just focus on 4 here. First, we pre-confirm job vacancies with our employer partners. Second, for the target professions, we identify those activities that really drive productivity and quality outcomes. And then we create a 4 to 12-week boot camp on that basis. Third, we measure the return on investment. And fourth, we offer social support services that start during the boot camp and continue in the first 3 to 6 months on the job. The way that generation scales is by a social franchise methodology. So we embed generation in any employer, any nonprofit, any public or private training provider. And we're designed to be financially self-sufficient on the basis of government fees and employer fees. Today, we are at 40% self-sufficiency. How can the Solve community support us? We want to introduce personalized learning to generation, which would make it one of the first times that that application has been done in the workforce space. We collect extensive data via technology, which enables us to create learner profiles. Based on these learner profiles, we then want to vary the dosage, mix, and frequency of our interventions so that we can meet each learner where they are. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Azita?
Thank you. Can you say a little bit more about how do you provide the trainings and how do you control for the quality of training?
Sure. So our training is based on having done what we call activity mapping, which means that we go to the employers and observe what are the 30 activities that they do in their day, but most importantly, what are the 5 to 6 activities that are what we call breakdown moments. We then trace those activities back to productivity and quality metrics. That becomes the basis for the curriculum. And so for those activities, we interweave technical, behavioral, and mindset skills in the actual performance of the activity, so that when our graduates then go on the job, they have the highest level of performance. And then in order to control for the quality, we do extensive onboarding of our instructors prior to joining and then on a weekly basis while they are training in the boot camp.
Mark and then Lucy.
Hi, thanks, Mona. Just wanting to drill into the social return on investment a little more.
Mm-hmm.
You've listed here that you've got an annual budget of $15 million, and I think you've been funded to the tune of about just under 90 million so far. How do you think about return on investment in terms of the total funding cost and the total cost of delivering the program?
So I think you're thinking of the budget over 5 years. So for the first 2.5, so essentially it is indeed the 15 million. So we think of our return on investment in a few different ways. One is what is the actual personal and financial well-being of our graduates. And as I mentioned, they have thus far earned over $50 million in salary. When the other element is how effective are we in delivering the program. So we have created a metric that we call cost per employed day, which takes the cost per student, the employment rate, and the retention rate. And so today, for example, in India, Kenya, and Mexico, we are able to achieve a $3 to $5 cost per employed day, which is for us the ultimate metric of whether our young people are not just being trained and employed, but that they actually stay on the job.
I was just wondering how the group that your beneficiary group is really hard, I can imagine, to access. Like, how are you accessing these young people, and then how are you keeping them engaged? So what's the retention like between people starting the course and ending the course as well?
Yeah. So we essentially are seeking to support those that are most disadvantaged in any of the cities where we are live. So we mobilize our young people through social media in some cities, through door-to-door campaigns in slums and other areas. So whatever is the most effective way. And we also partner with organizations that are grassroots or community-based and who have pools that we can then tap into. We have an 85% completion rate of the boot camp. And as I mentioned, over 70% are still in job at the 6-month mark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Go Global.
Good afternoon. My name is Taj Pabari. I'm the 17-year-old founder and chief executive of Brisbane, Australia-based organisation 56 Creations. Our solution is in partnership with the incredible Asia Education Foundation. Now, our solution will link young people across Southeast Asia and Australia with the skills and mindset that they need to thrive in the workforce of the future. Young people in this day and age cannot simply play with and use technology, but they must learn to create and build it. Meet Novi. Novi is a young girl living in rural Indonesia. Indonesia's economy is growing rapidly, driven by innovation and connection to global markets. For Novi to thrive in a globally competitive Indonesia, she must learn the skills of tomorrow, today. Our solution will link students just like Novi across Southeast Asia with the skills and resources to create the world we live in, rather than merely consume it. They'll do this through the 56 Tablet Kit, a build-it-yourself tablet and creativity kit for kids. As easy as a puzzle, as fun as a computer game, inspiring a generation of creators, not just consumers. They'll also learn about the power of technology-enabled communication. They'll use the tablets to connect with students all over the place, from across 6 countries in particular: Indonesia, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Australia. They'll work together on building their tablet and work together on cross-curricular projects that are transdisciplinary and can be utilised across multiple subject areas. Now, this is a big problem, obviously, and the education divide is huge. Our solution starts with teachers. We'll equip 100 teachers with the teaching capabilities and resources that they need to inspire the next generation of learners. Those 100 teachers will then empower over 3,000 students across 6 countries with a world-class education. They'll equip the students with a 56 Tablet Kit. They'll have the training necessary to really ignite a generation of creators, and that's really what we want to see on this planet. We'll also form a virtual global community of over 100 schools, which will ignite a generation of young problem solvers, young change makers, and most importantly, lifelong friends. The students will learn about intercultural understanding. They'll learn about science, technology, engineering, arts, creativity, and mathematics, skills we think are fundamental for growth and development in today's world. A financial contribution will allow us to work with 3,000 young people to ensure they do have the skills required to tackle the challenges of the future. By being part of the Solve community, we'd love to act as contributors and distributors to make sure we can get this world-class technology into the hands of more kids for less. Now, before I end off today, I thought I'd leave you with one final quote from Einstein. He says, "True intelligence is not about knowledge, but imagination." Thank you.
Ewan?
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question on how you'd work with governments in those 6 countries to ensure the alignment with national curriculum.
Absolutely, that's a really good question. So we've worked with around 150,000 kids. The goal is 1 million by 2020. And obviously we can't just go into the community and start teaching them skills we think are important. So we work with all the different embassies and different industries and departments to ensure they point us to the right direction on the schools we should be working with, to ensure that the tablets can actually be charged. Because obviously some of these communities don't have power. So we, on the guidance of different departments, different embassies, will go to the communities and the schools that they want us to go to and leave them with this educational opportunity. And through the teacher development, well, we're actually going to bring them to Australia to run professional development in class with those teachers.
Larry?
How many distinct parts are in the tablet and how long does it take to put it together?
Absolutely. So that's one right there. That's been sent all over the planet. So that's been to Kenya, that's been to India, that's been to Nepal, every single pitch that we've done. And essentially it takes about 15 minutes for an 8-year-old to put it together. They clip in the battery, they clip in the screen, they clip in the motherboard. There's no small parts. It's as easy as a puzzle. So super easy and safe.
You just mentioned that you fly the teachers to Australia for support.
Yeah.
How can you scale that?
Absolutely. So I guess that's just one element of our solution. Obviously, right now we think having that ongoing support where a teacher's in the classroom facilitating the tablet as well is super important. So we've attained funding through the Asia Education Foundation, where they're actually going to be running these teacher development workshops with another partner, and our role in it is to actually deploy these into the hands of more kids. And obviously the tablet is it's a very low-cost device that we can put into thousands of classrooms around the globe. We've worked with around 100, actually as of yesterday, we worked with 106,683 kids from around the planet. So we were out in outback Queensland a couple of months ago to a school that's super, super regional, super rural. And the students there, it was easy, the teachers loved it, the students loved it, and the results, I think, really showed for themselves.
Why do you think that assembling a tablet, as you say, it's as easy as a puzzle, will give them STEM competencies?
Absolutely. So the 56 tablet introduced them to physical computing. So that's one step. It's engaging, it's fun. It actually gets them, the kids that might not be as excited about the world of STEM, world of STEAM, excited in actually building. They can actually see what they're building. And then we take them through an online curriculum of STEM. So they learn about physical computing, they learn about elements of coding, not solely coding, that's just one part of it. And that's all on the online curriculum and what we help the teachers facilitate in those professional development sessions. So this is just to engage the kids, get them excited about STEM, and say, hey, you know what, we can build the products. We just don't need to code it on a computer all the time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Next up, we have Job Hack.
G'day, I'm Nathan Murphy from jobhack.org, and we're helping young people all over the world address the challenge of unemployment by developing the most scalable and accessible free online enterprise education. JobHack is a free online course with a simple value proposition. You can learn how to create your own job. Our message to young people is that they can learn the basic skills required to become a freelancer, have a small business, have a startup or a social enterprise. I created my own job when I was 16 years old, selling things on eBay. Since then, I've had multiple businesses, and the path of entrepreneurship has enabled me to create my own economic future. In recent years, I've worked with government in Australia and non-profits to develop entrepreneurship education programs for young people. But these programs could never scale past a few thousand people at most, which is why we've made JobHack completely free and online, so that we could try and reach the scale of things like Khan Academy or Code Academy, impacting millions of young people all around the world. So, JobHack is made up of 5 challenges. Each challenge has essential knowledge, case studies, quizzes, and an activity built on the project-based learning methodology. When they finish JobHack, they get a free certificate of completion and can join the International Alumni Network. We look for 2 main things when they finish JobHack. Number 1 is that paradigm self-belief that they can actually do this for themselves. And this is a mindset that young people of today and future generations desperately need to learn, that they can create their own jobs. Secondly, we look for them to acquire the very basic digital enterprise and soft skills that people will use in the majority of any instance when they're starting up a new venture. So, how's it going? Since February of this year, we've had 25,000 young people from 196 countries around the world. Don't know why that slide's not coming up, sorry. It's just skipping it. There's a previous slide. We've had 25,000 young people from 196 countries around the world join JobHack. We've reached a majority of these through Facebook's advertising platform and have spent less than $1,000 to do so. More than half are women, and we have a completion rate which is 5 times higher than the industry average. There's some pictures before that really show you the story, which is, this is not working, this is really frustrating. So there's a couple of stories I wanted to share. One was around Manjit in Nepal, who imports solar-powered stoves, where before everyone was using petroleum and charcoal to cook in his village, and Gloria, who's manufacturing baby shoes in a village in Uganda. And over the next 12 months, we want to go from 25,000 to 100,000 users by midway next year and 1 million after that. And we're on track for that growth. We want to implement stronger evaluation. We want to make JobHack accessible in more languages. And we're looking for 3 main things from the Solve community. Number one is our product. How can we improve it from a technological perspective? Our curriculum, how can we improve that for the benefit of our students? And business. So when JobHack students finish the course, the things that they want and need that we've discovered through interviews and surveys is they need further skill development, so we want to connect them with courses. They need access to capital. They need mentorship and business services. So if you can see potential in partnering with us on that, I'd love to chat to you. Thank you very much.
Just what's the one metric that you're trying to drive? Is it completion rates? Is it students getting jobs? Is it just the mindset shift? What are you trying to impact specifically?
We're measuring a lot of those things at the moment, but key priority for us is driving growth in the platform overall. So at the moment, we're tracking at about 120 new signups per day. And by the end of this year, we'd like to be on about triple that. We obviously optimize for completion rate, which is currently sitting at about 10% with the release of our new version. And then acquisition of those skills, and through various surveys, the improvement in self-confidence that they can actually do this for themselves. At the moment, that's what we measure.
Mark and then Cynthia.
Nathan, firstly, very well done, particularly given that you had slides that weren't appearing on the screen.
Yeah.
Very well done in difficult circumstances. You describe your organisation type as a for-profit, but JobHack is available free online. Help me understand the sort of the revenue model and how you'll be sustainable as an organisation.
Yeah, definitely. So we could offer a premium offering to our students, and some of them have indicated that they'd be up for paying like a month-to-month fee. However, initially, what we'd really love to do is keep it free as long as possible to try and reach the scale that we're most excited about reaching. And I think what the big potential is in connecting JobHack students with the next opportunity that's relevant to their context. So everyone that comes through JobHack is in a different stage of their life and their journey. Some of them need capital. So how can we connect them with capital? Some of them need further skill development. They need to go to an institution or perhaps do an online course deeper. So you can see the potential revenue there.
Cynthia?
Great, I agree. Good job in tough time. Without pictures, and I can see it. How are you being taken seriously? That point about that people are in different places. So how is the employers taking JobHack seriously and seeing it as a real skill provider?
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of have circumvented all the bureaucracy and systems around the world by messaging our young people directly through Facebook's advertising platform. So our message to them is learn how to create your own job. So we have a relationship directly with these young people all over the world. So at the moment, we're still only starting to chat to other stakeholders within the ecosystem that we'd love to partner up with. So that's something we still need to explore.
The focus of this challenge was on supporting disadvantaged youth. So I wanted to know, out of your users, how many of them do you classify as being from disadvantaged backgrounds, and how do you really try and push that?
So from the Welcome survey, we know that more than half of the people that are coming through JobHack have zero formal education. So I'm not sure if that qualifies as disadvantaged. But we're still, we have people from all over the world in all circumstances. Some people that have been to university and they're not at all disadvantaged, but other people that are in a village, they're doing JobHack on their smartphone, or if they have a smartphone, I guess they're not as disadvantaged. But yeah, so a whole full spectrum of people.
Nathan, you say you know the exact cost to scale JobHack to 1 million students. That's 40,000 AUD, about 30,000 US. Could you talk us through that?
Yep, so that's based on the cost per acquisition. So it costs us about 1 to 2 cents per click and 8 cents to acquire a new student to start JobHack. So that works out to, yeah, 1 million.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Kolarab Jobs.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Sweeting. I work for Save the Children, and I'm one of the co-founders of Kolarab Jobs. And yes, I'm another Australian. Kolarab Jobs wants to help people who are neat or at risk of becoming neat. It's not in education, employment, or training. We're working in Bangladesh, but let me just divert you for a second. Our origin began here in Dhaka, and we sought out to solve a different problem to begin with. We wanted to solve the issue around slums and informal settlements. There's about 4 million people in Dhaka living in slums and informal settlements. We wanted to solve the issue around commercial maps, who tend to miss out a lot of detail in these locations. We use a community mapping platform, OpenStreetMaps, to fill in these blanks. The reason we do this is so that these communities can be recognised by city governments and therefore be included in city plans. We mapped over 6,000 businesses and services in Dhaka, and we've mapped 1/3 of all wards in Dhaka City Corporation. But we have a third element to this project, Collar Up Jobs. This is not our idea. This came from our users. Our users challenged us. Can we find an easier way for young people to find job opportunities? Can we take the 1 million people who are NEET and connect them to jobs and training institutions? Can we transition the 95% of young people who do have employment out of the informal economy, out of the hazardous and dangerous work into the formal economy? We think we can. Our solution is a digital platform, a digital marketplace for employers, employees, and training institutions. We're not trying to replace anything here. We're trying to take the best of what's happening in the market right now. We're focused on blue-collar jobs. Currently, there's no digital solution in this space. We want to take the examples of Riku and Zahir, both of whom found training and job opportunities through traditional job placement programs. It can be slow and expensive. We simply want to accelerate this process, make it more transparent and more efficient, so that we can cast the net wider and include more young people, like our case studies. Our program is a shared value partnership. We have two major corporate partners, BD Jobs, which is Bangladesh's largest online job provider, who will be providing linkages to employers, and Seek International, Australia's largest online job provider, but also a major investor in the international employment services field. Together, we believe that we can solve the online job market in Bangladesh. Finally, we're asking the Solve Network to help us to build this partnership and address these issues. Thank you.
So is this basically just like an information sharing platform? And how is it different to what BD Jobs are doing?
So BD Jobs is an online job platform targeted at the white-collar job market, the professional job market. We're looking at the blue-collar job market. Yeah.
That's cool.
Do you think there are enough blue-collar jobs in the formal economy to transfer all those in the informal economy to the formal?
Yes. The largest employer in Bangladesh is the garment industry by far. They both sit in the formal and informal job market. And so we believe just in that sector alone, there's enough jobs to serve a vast majority of women who are looking for work. But also there's a growing demand for electricians and technicians, tradespeople, as well as basic sales entry positions.
Nafis?
How are you sourcing information on opportunities, and how are you verifying it?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
How are you sourcing? You're mapping opportunities.
Okay.
And how are you verifying these opportunities?
So initially, we started by mobilizing a community of open street mappers. So in Dhaka and many developing cities in Asia, there's communities of geographers, urban planners, architects, students who go out and map for fun. We've tapped into this network in Dhaka, and we use a crowdsourcing platform to do that, to achieve that goal. But for the job portal, we'll be working directly with BD Jobs because they will be providing a list, essentially, of employers to work with. And with that list, we connect them with our youth that were connected through the Collar Up platform.
Lisa?
And what do you see makes a difference for the young people to move into the new jobs?
So there's several benefits moving into the formal economy. I should note that the informal economy, a lot of the work goes unpaid, or it's a very low wage, so it's almost enforced slavery. So we're taking young people out of those conditions into a secure, more stable position, but also surrounded by some labour rights that they didn't previously own, and that's a really important step.
Totally understand. And what are you finding from your solution that's actually moving young people into the new jobs? Like, what's working?
So this is, I have to be clear, this is a pilot project. So we're here to ask the Solve Network to help us develop this pilot. So we haven't developed any prototype yet. It's a minimal viable product at this stage.
So just quickly, the flip side of that question, my question is about how you're going to overcome the perverse incentives on the employer side to actually formally employ people. Because if employing them informally, it's probably cheaper. I don't have to pay minimum wage.
Go ahead.
So the question is, how do we overcome the perverse
incentives for employers to stay in the non-formal sector?
Yeah. So we're endeavouring to work with the BD Jobs to identify employers that abide by sort of strong business ethics and have a strong corporate social responsibility. So we have to go through a vetting process with them to identify those employers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is Mark Coding.
Good afternoon. I'm Amanda, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mark Coding. We are helping disadvantaged youth gaining IT skills by teaching them how to code from our platform, Mark Coding. As the digital sector grows rapidly across the world, coding or programming will be one of the most important job skills of the future. Meanwhile, 35% of working-age individuals in Southeast Asia face unemployment due to lack of IT skills. So how to solve this problem? We see the answer from this community. It's Cilincing. Cilincing is one of the slum areas in Jakarta, Indonesia. But despite of their poverty level, these youth in Cilincing, they spend their time and money surf on the internet for 2 to 3 hours per day. So we see this as an opportunity to spark their interest in computer programming. Introducing our platform, Mark Coding. Mark Coding is an integrated online-offline community platform that introduces coding to disadvantaged youth in Indonesia. Our 8-week program combines practice modules, tutorials, mentoring sessions, and an online community. It's simple, fun, and free. We tailored the content into localized context to make it easily understood. And how are we going to deliver the program? We leverage their easy and frequent access to their local internet shops to access Mark Coding's website. And they can also use their own smartphones to access our app. And to keep them motivated, they will earn badges after completing each module, and that badges can be redeemed as cell phone credits as their incentives. By 2018, we will have 1,000 students with basic coding skills who will continue to become active and independent learners in our online community. And we will also expand throughout Indonesia to cover all the urban areas. Our next step is hypothesis testing, followed by curriculum and software development. And then we will launch our Jakarta-based pilot, and eventually we will launch our first batch of Mark Coding. To sustain Mark Coding financially, we've had preliminary discussions with several tech companies in relation to grant assistance and in-kind sponsorships. And we are also exploring the possibilities to diversify our revenue by launching a commercial summer holiday bootcamp and also a subscription-based course. From Solve, we hope to get funding, network, and guidance that will help us to develop our IT curriculum, technology infrastructures, and also our gamification features. With Mark Coding, we will equip disadvantaged youth with 21st century skills. Thank you.
Melissa?
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Why do you believe that coding will become the most important job skill of the future?
It's because it's one, when we look at the job portal in Indonesia especially, all of the job vacancies, they require IT skills. And most of them, even if it's not in IT field, even say it's in marketing jobs, they sometimes require basic HTML, CSS. So I see that the future is going there.
Thank you. Larry.
There has been a lot of work on online materials for teaching coding skills.
Yeah.
How much do you intend to use existing content versus create your own?
We're actually building our own learning materials right now because we're focusing on disadvantaged youth, and if we using the existing materials, it's in English, and we want it to be as localized as possible. So we're going to create our own materials.
Are you thinking in linking in any way to formal curricula in schools?
At the moment, our target participants is between 13 and 19 years old, and they are still in formal school education. So we're thinking in conducting this as an informal education, but we don't close the possibilities to implement this in the curriculum in the future.
After hours, after school hours? Or?
Extracurricular activities.
And will they have to pay for it?
For the moment, it will be free for disadvantaged youth, but in our second year, we will commercialize the program, and it will subsidize the fee for the disadvantaged youth.
Dana?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about your mentoring program? These disadvantaged youth going into a job environment, how do you help them make that transition? Is that part of the mentoring?
Actually, the first phase of our program is just to get them interested in coding first. Because if you go to the real coding bootcamp straight away, it will look hard and it might discourage them to learn coding. So our main purpose is to just introduce, but in the future, we're planning to also launch an advanced programming course that actually produce a job-ready programmers, and we can connect them straight to a job market.
Great.
What are you doing now to connect to employers, and how are you going to future-proof the curriculum as new types of software languages come out and new things become sort of in vogue as a coder that you need to know?
Can I?
Really quick. Very quickly.
Okay. So it's actually part of what we're going to do in our hypothesis testing and also pilot. We plan to get feedback from IT educators in regards to our curriculum development.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Open Learning Exchange.
Hello, I'm Richard Rowe, the founder of the Open Learning Exchange. We call it OLE. Our mission is to solve the challenge of guaranteeing every person in the world a meaningful education. To do that, we need to reframe education itself from a one-size-fits-all, top-down industrial model to a dynamic personal learning experience. And OLE's toolkit provides that personal learning tools that are needed to achieve that goal. So let's take a trip and see how this actually works with young adults who happen to be refugees in Dadaab. We're providing these pathways to learning with young adults who are caught in this refugees camp, in this particular case, in Dadaab. We're working in many different locations, but this is an example of Dadaab. About 3 years ago, young Somalis there decided that they wanted to create community learning centers to be able to use our system to be able to prepare themselves for their work outside the camp. Today, 6,000, over 6,000 young adults in that Dadaab camp are members of these community learning centers that were created. Each member has their own personal dashboard with the courses and the videos and books that they need in order to prepare their future. The software is free. It works off the internet. It can be powered by solar cells. With a small $35 server right here in my hand, which has thousands of resources in it, available, any member can download from this their personal learning dashboard and begin work. It's thrilling to see the faces of these young people as they take charge of their own learning, as they learn that they can, in fact, do things that they never thought they could do. And as they reach out and connect with other people who have similar interests. Now, there are many interests among these people, but we find that there are 4 that are really important, and that is education, health, technology, and starting a business. Many of them actually started a business. Here's an example of one who's actually started a business in Adobe. So we need help in further helping people ourselves get these career pathways clear and being able to further improve the software itself so that it's more effective, and being able to provide evidence of the effectiveness of this approach for helping young people throughout the world learn how to create their own career in this small and very rapidly changing planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the judges? Tom?
Thank you very much. How do you select the curriculum, the content that goes on?
How do we select the content? The content is really curated primarily within the camp itself by our own team. We have a small team of Somali young adults themselves. We have a relationship with Mogadishu University and the faculty there to help us in those materials. But a lot of the content is really based upon what the students, what the young people themselves need. A lot of it's in Somali, some in Arabic, a little bit in English.
Nafis.
Can you just talk quickly about the platform? So is this something you guys have developed in-house and maintain with your own engineering team?
It is open source. It's available on GitHub. We have developed it ourselves. We continue to develop it. It'll never be finished. It always needs another feature, another way to improve. We get a lot of feedback because this system actually links back to the internet on a periodic basis. So we're able to look at the activity of each learner in the system. And we're doing this in other countries, not just in Adobe, but we've done it in Syria. We just signed an agreement with a company, with the nation of Mogadishu, and we're working with them as a partnership. Yes.
Is there a part of the model aimed at getting people into the formal education system, or is this purely informal learning?
This works very well both in formal and informal. What we found, however, that it's a lot easier to make this shift from top down to bottom up in an informal environment because you don't have to retrain the teachers. But we have just signed an agreement with the entire government of Madagascar for 8 million children, all of the public school children in Madagascar, to use this system. It's going to take some years to do it, but it's 8 million children in the school system itself.
Other questions?
You're all satisfied. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Pacific Flying Planes.
The humanitarian response to Hurricane Harvey here in the US just a few weeks ago resulted in a massive use of aerial robotics, or civilian drones, as you see here, that sped up the relief efforts and also even saved lives. Now contrast this to the Caribbean, where Hurricane Irma had a huge devastating effect just last week, where we saw almost no local use of this technology for disaster response. The robotics divide is very real, and like the digital divide, is already having negative effects, dire consequences, and not just in the Caribbean, but also in the South Pacific, which is extremely vulnerable to climate change. Our mission at We Robotics is to democratize access to robotics solutions. And we do this through our flying labs. These are local innovation labs that are entirely run by local staff who then train others on how to use this technology for social good. For example, our Peru Flying Labs has been teaching youth in the Amazon rainforest on how to use flying robots to deliver essential medicines. And in our Tanzania Flying Labs, our team there are training young women in Zanzibar on how to use this technology for environmental monitoring. And over at our flying labs in Nepal, the youth there are learning how to use robotics for disaster preparedness in the Himalayas. We're continuing to grow this global network of flying labs thanks to strategic partnerships as well as scalability and sustainability strategies. And just one example on scalability, each of our labs have a direct role to play in incubating the next labs direct south-to-south capacity building. We're leveraging those network effects. And on feasibility, our labs offer a range of services, paid services, and we've seen this demand for lab services increase across the board. So important in terms of sustainability. We're here today to ask you for your help to establish the South Pacific Flying Labs, to empower disadvantaged youth in that region to hopefully become some of the next humanitarian drone pilots on their islands, because goodness knows that that region is not going to be spared the impact of climate change. We've already carried out field research with the Australian Red Cross, and we're very excited to announce publicly here for the first time that the University of South Pacific will be teaming up with us on the Flying Labs to help teach these youth in the Pacific the new skills that they need to thrive in the 21st century. We're hoping that this will inspire some of them to go on to become humanitarian drone pilots in their islands, or to focus their drone robotic solutions on public health or environmental applications. In terms of our partnership needs, we'd love help in evaluating the impact of our Pacific Flying Labs. We need help on new strategies for storytelling, and we're looking to engage the airlines in the region so that they can sponsor our groups of young pilots across the region. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. What do you see as the major obstacles to scaling, and how would you set about overcoming those obstacles?
Perhaps surprisingly, the obstacle is not going to be on the technology side. It's really going to be on the regulatory side. We're working a lot with the CAAs, the Civil Aviation Authorities in the Pacific, through a number of projects, not only with the Australian Red Cross, but the World Bank. And it's getting better, especially in the Pacific compared to some of the other regions. So once we continue building that trust, which we've done with other flying labs around the world and the CAAs, it's going to be a lot easier. We've already got the established formal partnerships with the leading robotics companies in the industry where we source this technology from, either pro bono or at a heavy discount. So that is really not the problem. Technology is not the issue. It's going to be on the regulatory side.
You talked about, do you want to go? You talked about humanitarian response as one of the purposes of this.
Yeah.
If that's the ultimate goal, why aren't you training humanitarian response organizations who are locally based as opposed to 8-year-olds?
Thank you. So one quick answer is Flying Labs focus on all kinds of different projects that are identified as priorities by the local staff. The Flying Labs in the Pacific is going to be co-created with National Red Cross societies. The Australian Red Cross is interested. The International Federation of the Red Cross is interested. So there's going to be, if you'd like, an adult staff, right, that are going to be having some of the skills. But the reason why we need a Flying Labs is, having done this field research in the Pacific a few months ago, those humanitarians don't have the capacity to take on a new technology, fly things around, capture the imagery, analyze. They've told me themselves very transparently, we don't have the capacity, but we need the data, we need the analysis. And we think that youth could be a really important part of that solution.
Cynthia?
You can only handle so many drone pilots. So how much does this translate if not every kid who goes here can't be a drone pilot? How much does it translate into other robotic opportunities?
Great, thank you so much for asking that, because some of the main use cases we have identified in Fiji, Vanuatu, and the Cook Islands is marine robotics, surface water, floating robots and underwater robots to do all kinds of exploration and marine life management and so on. So we're robotics, we're not drones. We want to bring all kinds of robotics. There's also terrestrial robotics to collect plastics that are basically polluting the beaches and so on. So we are very open to all kinds of autonomous robotic solutions. Thank you for asking that.
You explained well that you want to, through this solution, give them skills and experience in using robotics. But what's the support system to have startups?
That's a whole other area. So our Flying Labs has the mandate to incubate local startups that focus on robotics. We've already done this in Nepal with youth groups and have incubated 4 local Nepali startups. And we'd love help in replicating that in the Pacific as well. We work with a number of different partners to make that happen. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So next up, we will have a remote pitch from Ruang Guru.
Hi, my name is Iman. I'm 25 years old and I'm co-founder of Ruang Guru. I'd like to introduce you to Firman. He is 20 years old and he has been selling newspaper for a living since he left high school at the age of 17. Unfortunately, Firman cannot switch to a better paying job because almost all job postings in Indonesia require at least a high school diploma. And there are 7 million people like Firman in Indonesia. However, sending people like Firman to school is not necessarily the solution because there is opportunity cost of leaving their current jobs, and prep schools are either very limited, costly, and sometimes do not have a good quality. At Ruang Guru, we have been providing educational solutions in all kinds. We have learning videos, test prep materials, private tutoring, and any other platform that have benefited over 3 million students. But mostly, they're coming from affluent youth communities. So we've been thinking, how can we bring this solution to also affect disadvantaged youth communities? And that's where the idea of Ruang Guru Digital Bootcamp comes in. The first component is self-learning test prep materials, which is designed by using learning journey. Every learning journey is designed by using a specific instructional design to help a student master a specific topic in a specific subject. Every learning journey might consist of compilation of several videos, learning notes, quiz, and some other materials, which all of them are taught by top tutors in Indonesia. But to reduce the dependency towards internet connection, which can be very costly, by the way, we try to provide the students with USB on the go, which can be connected to an Android phone, which enables students to access our content in our application without having to be charged for internet data plan. So they can access our content anywhere. The second component is guided group learning. Every student will join a group chat for each subject with 19 other students who also come from similar background. This group chat is moderated by a learning consultant and dedicated tutors that will help them not just to prepare for exam, but also to strategize their learning path and life after graduation. All solutions are delivered with the concept of group chat-based mentoring and peer learning. For the pilot, we plan to test the solution to 500 high school dropout youth, which are divided into 2 groups. The first one is youth in foster care, and the second one is for youth who are not enrolled in prep school. We hope to achieve 80% graduation rate and 30% job enrollment rate after they got their diploma. With this, we hope that Firman and other people with similar situation can get high school diploma and hence access a better paying job. Thank you.
Iman is actually on the line now, and so we'll take questions, and you should hear him on the speaker shortly. Iman, are you there? Let's just
yes, I'm here.
Fantastic. Okay, judges, questions. Lucy?
I have a logistical question that I'd appreciate just a bit more clarity on, which is, how do they then take the high school diploma? Do you have links with high schools? I'm just not familiar with that system. So how would they actually end up getting that certificate to then be able to use it to help them go into employment?
Sure, great question. So in Indonesia, we have 2 types of ways basically to get a high school diploma. One is through a formal system, which is basically you are enrolled for full-time in schools. But the other model is also basically you take an equivalent exam. So basically for those who are dropping out or basically are not basically finishing school, they can take an equivalent exam that happen multiple times a year. So typically, students who do not finish, they go to prep schools to prepare for that kind of exam. But they're limited and tend to be costly as well.
Great. Nafez?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I guess just a quick question on sustainability. I assume this is this like a CSR effort of your for-profit company, or is this being sustained some other way?
No, so we don't see this as CSR, but we believe that this is something that can be sustainable on its own. We think about several models. So the first one is basically, by selling through retail, but with a lower price. But to ensure that it's not cannibalizing our main business, we might basically partner with non-profit organizations so they can basically buy in bulk. Another model is basically through sponsor. So basically, those who are coming from affluent background, they can basically sponsor a kid that they want, and then basically those sponsorship will go to those who are in it.
Imran, I had another question, which is how do you ensure that, or how do you check that there is demand for your services? If these are dropped out school kids, then would they be interested in taking up additional learning?
Yeah, so basically, the numbers say this, right? So basically, there are like millions of people who are dropping out. But when we do like basically initial research, and basically this research is also confirmed by a lot of other research that has been existing in the field, the main concern why basically they're not finishing high school is because of the opportunity cost, because they're currently working in the informal sector. So, and the second option is also because if they go back to school, then their age might be way older than the typical kids, and they're not comfortable of it. So it is why when we come up with this idea, we try to check with our nonprofit partners as well, and then they see it something that is viable and basically at least have a demand for it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Iman. Next up, we have Script Ed.
Hi there, my name is Becca Novak, and I'm here to talk to you about Script Ed. Script Ed is a nonprofit organization that equips youth from under-resourced high schools with the technical coding skills and the professional experiences they need to access careers in technology. I'm our Bay Area Executive Director, but I helped start our organization right here in New York City in 2012. Our whole team were former teachers, so I knew, having worked with thousands of low-income students, that while kids are obsessed with technology, I had never heard a single student express to me that she wanted to pursue a career in tech, which is why we started Script Ed. So we are a robust, multi-year tiered program bridging high school and career for students. We start with a foundational web development course, which is taught at the high school, and we actually recruit software engineers as volunteers to teach the class. Students then continue on to an advanced class that's held after school at a company partner office, also taught by volunteers. They go on to an internship program where they apply those coding skills that they learned in a real professional environment. They then join our alumni community where they have access to professional development, networking, and college-level internships. Our long-term goal is that half of our alumni or more will go on to work in careers in tech. So since we started in 2012, we've grown quite substantially. We've got 1,200 students participating across 52 high schools in New York City and the San Francisco Bay Area. We have more than 250 software engineers who are actively volunteering in our classrooms, and more than 200 company partners who are supporting us in this work. Here's a list of just some of our company partners. We also have a strong board of directors and a growing network of funders and other advocates. We know that the model is successful. 97% of our students start college. 65% of them are majoring in computer science. 4 out of 6 of our alumni who are not working are working in technology. So we know that this is successful. Looking forward, we know that the tech industry is only going to continue to grow and define our economy and the jobs of the future. So we aim to ensure that youth from historically oppressed communities have access to this growth and are in fact driving this growth moving forward. So Script Ed can work anywhere that the tech industry is, which as we know is increasingly everywhere. So we've talked with cities like Austin, Boston, Miami, and others about bringing our program there, even others outside of the US. And so we're looking here for funding partners to help sustain and support us as we grow, in addition to thought partners to help keep us as dynamic as the tech industry is. Our students, if you look at them, they're clever, they're passionate, they're creative. If we can equip them with the skills and experiences they need for the jobs of today and tomorrow, just imagine what they're going to create. Thank you.
Azita?
I have 2 questions. Yes. One is, how do you ensure that there are as many volunteers as you rely upon? Mm-hmm. What's the incentive for them? And secondly, you mentioned work readiness programs, and how do you do that?
Yeah, great question. So the volunteers has honestly never been a problem. I keep expecting for it to be, but we have a wait list of volunteers in New York City and in the Bay Area. I think software engineers are often looking for a way to give back, and they have flexible schedules, so that has not yet been a problem. We spread word through word of mouth. We have amazing volunteer retention, so 90% of our volunteers complete a full year with us. 65% of them re-up for a second year. So we actually have some volunteers that have been with us for 5 years, which is amazing. They're incredible teachers. And then in terms of workplace preparation, we incorporate professional development skills into our classes at the foundational level. Advanced, we've got weekend workshops for students, and then a lot of that learning also happens on the job when they're in their internships.
Larry?
Does the volunteer model constrain you to tech hubs where there are lots of potential volunteers?
Yeah, good question. It's easier there, which is why we've started in these 2 cities. We know that, however, there are software engineers at every company now, increasingly. So I can see us it's going to be easier to start in tech hubs, but as we develop deeper company partnerships with companies that have hubs in different cities and different regions, I think we'll scale more effectively. I'm not sure about rural populations yet, unless we figure out remote kind of learning.
Cynthia?
What was your biggest surprise, positive or negative, the first, or right now, the first year or two, that will help you as you scale, to keep in mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I have been surprised, one, at sometimes the initial resistance from companies to work with 16-year-olds as interns, but then kind of the flip side is how excited once they meet the kids. So we are sending students to companies after 2 years of intensive preparation, and our companies are loving the students. We actually had 3 companies this summer extend job offers to their high school interns to continue working part-time at their companies. So I think that's not an explicit part of our program, but has been a really kind of wonderful surprise. Thank you.
Your program is very popular to one 9-year-old sitting here. At the beginning, you said that students don't often think about careers in tech. So what have you found that converts students to want to go into tech?
Yeah, good question. So we go to schools. Students often in our schools don't know anybody that works in software engineering. So we go to the schools and we kind of pitch them on the idea. We talk about how creative you can be if you are building a web app. A lot of our students are very entrepreneurial and they have businesses that they want to build, and they haven't maybe yet made the connection between how important technology is going to be to that business. We talk to them about all of the apps and websites that they use every day, and wouldn't it be cool if instead of just using them, they were actually getting to create their own or improve the ones that they use.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Solve Education.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nin from Solve Education. We create an educational game app that will change the lives of almost 300 million young people who do not have access to school globally. Meet Diane, one of our most active users. Diane unfortunately married young and is now a single mom in her 20s with a teenage daughter. She's currently working as a domestic helper. Diane has bigger dreams, but she does not have a high school diploma. This problem is real and is experienced by so many people around the world. At a young age, Diane had to work in order to contribute to a family income and hence did not have the luxury to go to school. When marginalized from employment, it is really hard for the young to be motivated to learn the skills for that marketplace and to have the strong work ethics to stick to a job long term. Access to existing digital learning platform is even more difficult due to her low-end device and poor internet infrastructure. And our solution is designed exactly to improve the livelihoods of Diane and the many others like her. Adopting a user-centric approach, we created Dawn of Civilization together with 100 youth in Indonesia. The platform is designed to be open-sourced and modular so that different content providers can contribute. The core curriculum and pedagogy are set to ensure learning efficacy. The platform is in form of a meta game, which is a gender-neutral city-building game like SimCity, and in order to progress in the game, the users play mini-games, which are bite-sized lessons. The games are built on tried, tested, and adaptive pedagogical methods. The meta game also provides an opportunity to teach soft skills like grit and collaboration. It provides motivation using game mechanics, social network, and incentives, linking the users up with internship and employment opportunities through our job portal, Solve Employment. The game is lightweight enough to run on low-end devices and robust enough to support poor mobile infrastructure. Instead of gamifying education, our approach is to edutify games using game mechanics of existing popular games. We also leverage on artificial intelligence and big data to improve learning outcomes and user experience. We would really appreciate the opportunity to be part of the MIT Solve community. to partner up with experts in order to implement and scale better and faster. We are a team of crazily passionate people who are really excited about what this platform can do for the almost 300 million people like Dion, and we welcome any questions. Thank you.
How are you? Thank you. This is great. How are you using artificial intelligence?
We use artificial intelligence in a few ways. From giving feedback to the users, for example, in our literacy module, when the users, and speaking is one of their key barriers for them, so we actually have our users speak to the phone, and then in a car racing game, and the artificial intelligence can give the feedback immediately. But we also use artificial intelligence to deliver the right content to the users at the right time as well. And in other ways, we are using artificial intelligence to increase our user retention, just to learn which part of the games stimulate our users more. Thank you.
Thank you. How are you accessing these people? So I can imagine they're really hard to reach. So how are you finding them?
Yes. So how are we accessing them? So to bootstrap it, we go through our NGOs, our NGO partners and grassroots communities. But also we realized that the most effective ways is to have our users find their friends. In fact, recently we rolled out the challenge, and at the moment it's still running. The user that has found the most friends to date, in 3 weeks' time, she found like more than 300 friends to join. So it's really interesting just to see. Of course, there is a big range. Thank you.
Janine, you mentioned that you are introducing education to games rather than gamifying education. Help me understand the impact that you think you're having on the lives of the people who are using the app and the games.
Right. So what we see is that when we go to this community and we look at what they are using those devices on for, and how much screen time they're spending on, and we saw that they are spending a lot of time on social media apps and game apps, right? And so we thought to ourselves, can we use those mechanics that's attracting them, to spend so much time to learn, and then using that mechanics to teach them and to have them have the passion, to grow the passion of learning, and then link them up with modules that would train them on job-specific skills, then link them up with employment, so that we get them to a more secure future. Thank you.
So tell me more about the specific skills they learn in the games, and then you talk about the employment platform you have. How many youth have gone through that employment platform, and how do the employers feel about the quality of those people?
So what specifically we are teaching in the platform, for us, we focus on the skill of learning how to learn rather than the content itself. So the two fundamental skills that we are teaching is the literacy skills and numerical reasoning, so that we can equip them to learn whatever content that they so desire. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Next up, we have translation community building.
Hello, I'm Claire Sutcliffe, Executive Director at the Raspberry Pi Foundation and co-founder of Code Club. We're helping children aged 9 to 13 and the adults who educate them access free, high-quality coding materials in their language of choice by building a community of volunteer translators. The materials they will access will teach children programming and other 21st century and digital making skills essential for future employment and entrepreneurship. They're used in Code Clubs, which is a free volunteer-led extracurricular club for children aged 9 to 13. We have already established 10,000 code clubs in 125 countries, supported by 15,000 volunteers and reaching 175,000 children a week. In the UK, 40% of the children that attend the 6,000 clubs that run there are girls. Learners and educators are provided with a set of 36 core projects that use Scratch, HTML, and Python, available online and to download. They're project-based and teach children how to make games, animations, and websites. All Code Club projects are written originally in English, but 80% of the world doesn't speak English at all. If our large and growing library of resources was available in more languages, we could reach more children in Code Club and increase our impact. Volunteers have already made some progress in translating our projects, but we think a coordinated community effort would really speed up our project. We plan to prototype a translation community made up of students, linguists, and others skilled in languages. Volunteers would use machine translation technology initially and then refine the translations by hand, test the resources, and upload them to our learning platform, ready to be used by children and volunteers around the world. We estimate that this project would double the current reach of Code Club resources to 4 million views a year. We know from experience that when we translate our materials into another language, more Code Clubs are set up in the regions that speak those languages. For example, we've translated our projects into Spanish, and we've seen 100 Code Clubs start in Spain in the last 6 months. By translating into many languages, we intend many more thousands of Code Clubs will be set up around the world, and we'll work with our partners and local networks to support this activity. The expertise of the Solve community will help us identify and reach the right technology for translation and the best practices for quality assurance to make sure those translations are perfect. Being part of MIT Solve will help us identify and engage with those networks that will supercharge the growth of the volunteer translation community and the Code Club movement worldwide. We're looking to work with partners who share our values and our ambitions to equip young people for the jobs of the future and enable them to understand and shape their world. Thank you.
Azita?
Thank you. How do you ensure that you are reaching disadvantaged group?
So this is the first step in trying to bring Code Club to more children around the world. What we've done is identify the languages which we think will reach more disadvantaged children to focus on first. And that would be Arabic, Hindi, and simplified Chinese to begin with. But we would be welcoming any languages from around the world.
So a lot of the data that you just shared with us is your output data. So I'm really interested in the outcomes data. So can you tell me what happens to children who go to Code Club? What kind of skills do they learn, and how do you know that it's making an impact?
Okay, so we undertook an independent study on our work in the UK, and so I'll be referring to the UK study for this. But there we learned that children definitely improved their programming skills. It is very, very difficult to measure the confidence level of a child when they go through a program like this, and actually it's more useful to talk to the teachers and other educators that work with them. That's what we found. So our intention is that children would go to Code Club and become inspired to continue that kind of study. We only started 5 years ago, and a longitudinal study of that kind is just not in place at the moment. So at the moment, we're unable to tell whether or not children go into those careers. But hopefully ask me again in, I don't know, another 5 years, I can tell you.
I think I saw a lot of international Code Club on that slide. How is it working there without translation? Like, what's the mechanism used today?
Yeah, so I mentioned before that some of the volunteers around the world have already done some translation. So those clubs are either using the English ones or they're using the small amount of projects that have been translated. So we have a kind of unfinished sets in 28 different languages at the moment. Does that make sense? The rest of the time, they're supported by partners. So in some countries, we have very specific partners. So in Australia, Brazil, Ukraine, Spain, we have partners who go about recruiting and retaining our volunteers and supporting them in their work running Code Clubs.
So this question is coming from 9-year-old right here, target audience, and it's similar to what she asked, but we just want to push it a little further. We want to know, how does this program really help the young people that are going through? So the outcomes, what are truly the outcomes that you're looking for?
So what we would expect is that somebody who has been to Code Club would, first of all, have a lot of fun. So this is an extracurricular club. It's not a class. So we'd hope that you'd be like making things with your friends, that you'd be working on a project together. So you'd be learning about collaboration, you'll be presenting your ideas to each other, you'd be working on creative ideas, and there's some of like what we people keep referring to as soft skills, and then the programming skills on top of that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we have Tula Learning Centers.
Good afternoon. My name's James Centenera, and I'm from Tula, Philippines. This is Isa. She wants to be a scriptwriter. And this is Joseph. He wants to be a chemist. It's great to have these dreams to motivate you, but these dreams will probably change as they change and as the world changes faster than ever before. And Isa and Joseph have a big challenge. They live in the developing world where schools are sadly struggling. Their schools aren't going to develop all the skills they need to achieve their dreams. So we built Tula, a new tech-enabled learning ecosystem focused on 21st century skills to supplement schools and help kids prepare for the future. We can't predict the jobs of the future, but we can help prepare kids with all the essential skills, such as critical thinking, social skills, courage, grit, resilience, so that they can learn, adapt, and succeed at anything. And instead of waiting on slow school reform, we're building a new ecosystem with modern learning centers and digital apps to unlock opportunities after school, beyond school. So how does Tula work? The first half focuses on practical math and communication skills. Kids explore a few problems, which determines their true level for that topic. Then a coach guides them through a digital visualization of a concept so that they get the basics. And then they practice lots of problems on our own gamified app. This personalizes learning using the data collected. They can even continue this at home in an offline mode as well. The second half focuses on missions. Now, missions are a 10-week-long project where kids explore an industry or a problem and work together to develop solutions. All of this content is designed centrally, deployed on the cloud, and coaches use it using a mix of digital activities and physical activities to get the kids to learn. For example, a recent mission was about the environment. Kids investigated issues on their tablets using the internet. Then they developed their own digital public advocacy campaigns to educate parents on what they should do. And then they even explored real renewable energy solutions by building their own solar ovens. In essence, missions are a fun simulation of what they could do in the future when they grow up. And it allows them to forget the subject knowledge for a second and focus on grit, courage, critical thinking, all these other essential skills they need to develop. We're proud to say we've helped a lot of kids do really, really well academically and even learn at home. Isa is doing really well at school, and Joseph is a courageous young leader. But how do we get from 4 centers to millions? Fortunately, our model is flexible enough. So with $10,000 US, we can hire a person, find a space, and open any time of the year, unlike heavily regulated schools. And our fees are, we're lean, so our fees are only less than $1 a day for public school kids. Our challenge now is convincing enough parents to invest in their kids' education beyond academics, beyond traditional schooling, and really make a difference for their future. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia.
You said beyond you're convincing parents to let their kids do this. As a parent, the first person I ask is the teacher. What's a good program? So how are you reaching out and convincing the teachers?
Yeah, great question. So the main way we generate leads, in fact, and convince parents is by partnering with schools. We're a social enterprise, so we help schools out and actually run an English contest and other thinking contests and competitions and show teachers that there's more to it than just academics. But teachers appreciate that after school, their kids, rather than just playing games or running around in the street, get to enrich their learning and understanding. And so they see the benefits if we educate them about them and refer Tula to parents. They want their kids to do better. They don't want to have kids struggling in their classes, so they're directly incentivized. We just have to make them aware about it. So that's how we partner with schools.
Lucy?
I've got 2. Number 1, how are you targeting disadvantaged young people? Number 2, how are you training the teachers?
Yeah, great questions. The first one is quite simple in the Philippines. 80% of kids still go to public schools. They attend for free, and only about 20% of kids actually go to university in the future. So these are the kids that are going to drop out along the way. Their parents are taxi drivers, maids, helpers, maybe they're overseas workers. So we work specifically with public schools and generate most of our leads from there. We get right now about 80% of our kids from public schools, and some of them are even on scholarships as well.
80% of kids in public school doesn't mean all 80% are disadvantaged. That's a big breadth.
No, absolutely. But if you look at the statistics in the Philippines, 80% of people are classified in the D and E segments of the population. Now, the D segment only earn they're underemployed. They only earn about $400 US income a month, household income. And so these are kids that aren't getting the opportunities. If I show you the areas that we work in, they're jeepneys, they're really like basic areas. And then on the teacher training, so we follow a kind of Teach for America approach where we hire young professionals, young graduates who want to do something passionate in their career. We give them the opportunity to become a learning coach for 1 to 2 years. And we have an intense program that helps them learn how to be a teacher. It's a mix of a bit of pre-service training, on the job, and then an apprenticeship model. So they have a master coach that mentors them and observes them on a regular basis, gives them feedback, and they can also gain access to digital resources online to enrich their craft.
Tom?
How do you measure the progress on these so-called soft skills like curiosity and courage?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. This is probably the biggest unanswered question in the education space globally at the moment. We're all still focused on standardized tests. So we've created our own rubrics, actually, for our 8 character traits, 5 attitudes, and 3 skill sets. An example would be courage. If you look at courage, for example, courage is doing something you're afraid of. Most kids, when they're young, are afraid to do this, and most adults even, speak in front of a group of people. So we've come up with a simple scale of 1 to 10. If a kid is a 1, something they're afraid of, they just freeze and won't go and do it yet. If they're a 10, even when they're afraid of it, they take a deep breath and go out there and do it. And so we have our coaches observe them on a regular basis while they're doing these missions and give them scores. And it's random throughout the 10-week mission. Maybe they'll observe them 3 or 4 times on courage, and then 3 or 4 times on curiosity, and the same thing. So we're building our own rubric based on these global best practices, but really looking to improve that actually as we grow.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next up, we have Tuteria.
Hi, my name is Godwin, and I'm the founder of Tuteria. About 3 years ago, while leaving my previous company, my manager told me, almost with tears in his eyes, how his 3 kids have been performing poorly at school, and he hadn't been able to find a teacher for them for over 3 months. Yet he lives close to a university where there are thousands of people who have the time, the passion, and the competence to teach his kids. Now, he desperately needed them but had no means of reaching them. And this is a problem shared by millions of children who might struggle to go through school, or youths and adults who may not get a job, start a business, or achieve their personal learning goals, not because they're not smart, but because they cannot find someone who can teach them what they want to learn. And this is why we created Tuteria, an online peer-to-peer learning platform that connects people seeking to learn anything, both formal and informal skills, with competent local teachers who can teach them what they want to learn to impact on their communities and earn a source of income. So for instance, if you lived here in Manhattan and wanted to learn how to play the violin, with Tuteria, you can easily find a vetted violin instructor who stays a few blocks away from you and is willing to teach you with his spare time. And it's pretty easy to use. You simply search, place a request, and you're matched with a verified teacher. You can, and if you found a good fit, then you can select a teacher and go ahead to make payments, which is not paid to the teacher until after the classes have been fully delivered. And we also have a system that measures learning outcomes and gives and receives feedback. And in less than 2 years since we launched, we have approved over 10,000 teachers from more than 20,000 applicants, who have taught over 3,000 students in various subjects and skills, and have earned over $230,000 in sales. And these are unemployed graduates, low-income teachers who, before now, didn't have access to this source of income. And then students across various subjects and skills have been able to realize their life goals, pass various exams, or do better at school because now they have access to someone who can teach them what they really want to learn. And okay, this is also how we've grown in a couple of months. In the coming months, we're looking to launch we're looking to spread our impact. We are really excited about group lessons where a group of 3 to 7 children can, or students rather, can split the cost to hire one teacher, which would drastically drop the cost of learning by more than 75% as we look to spread across Africa. For now, we currently work in Nigeria, and we're excited about leveraging a partnership with Solve to benefit from the mentoring and network to scale our platform across Africa.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Kevin.
You mentioned you're a for-profit tutoring company. Who's your biggest competitor, and what do you do that's different?
Okay, in Africa and in Nigeria particularly, there is, we're the first company to have a platform that brings learners and teachers in this way. Every other person does it traditionally. So you have a small shop, a small tutoring center. But what makes us different is the fact that you could literally learn anything. So we've had people who want to learn languages, local and foreign, who want to learn how to play different instruments, even people who want to start a business like fashion or photography, but simply had nowhere to go to ask or find a teacher. So through our platform, they've been able to learn the skill that is important to them, and they've actually gone on to start businesses that can support themselves and their families.
And how do you maintain the quality of the tutors, and do you have any mechanism in place for people who weren't satisfied with the quality to pay less or not pay at all?
Okay, absolutely. Before tutors come on board, there is quite an extensive vetting process, which begins with an identity verification, where they upload a government-issued ID and connect to a social network, and then they have an interview, a phone or Skype, to get a sense of how they communicate and their passion for teaching. And then we have subject tests, actually, standard test, one-time test. So if you're going to teach maths or physics, you have to pass the test and you have just one chance. If you don't do it the first time, then you can't do it again. And then we also have ratings and reviews. So after a completed class, a student gives his feedback, which is how we measure learning outcomes as well as teacher efficiency. And based on that, teachers who have less than 3.5 rating cannot continue on our platform. So that way we continue measuring quality.
This is for anyone who wants to learn anything, as you said.
Yes.
But then how do you ensure that this is accessed first and foremost by disadvantaged? And secondly, who pays for what, by whom?
Okay, thank you. So we view disadvantage in two ways. First, I'll speak from the teacher side. So these are unemployed graduates, and in Africa, the number is embarrassingly huge. And so we've been able to create jobs for them, people who ordinarily could not get any job for themselves, but people who are smart and could go through the process and earn a source of income by teaching. Secondly, are the students. Now, we've begun testing group lessons. We've noticed much of the people who can afford one-on-one lessons are not really in the rural communities. So in the past 3 months, we started group lessons that are pretty cheap, where students will come together to hire one teacher. And we found that has been, it has been grabbed wholeheartedly by people in rural and disadvantaged communities. So we are seeing that as a product that would effectively cater to them, while we also cater to those who can afford to pay.
They don't have to pay?
They pay a little amount of money.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Wanji Games.
So, in December of 2014, our car broke down during a business trip, which is not unusual, except it broke down here in Karamoja, one of the most remote regions in Uganda. And while we were waiting to get the car fixed, I was at this homestead for some time. They were 50 miles from the nearest TV or computer, but they did have a connection to the outside world. They had a basic mobile phone. Now, I couldn't text them because they can't read or write in Karamojong, their language. But they could do audio things. They could make phone calls, they could listen to the radio. So I run a media innovation NGO, which is always looking for new ways to remix technology and media to create change. And this got us thinking about how can we combine these different elements. The accessibility of audio and radio, the ubiquity of the mobile phone, also the interactivity of gamification and the power of story. So we prototyped and iterated and tested for about a year, and we developed Wanji. And here's how it works. You call a toll-free number, and you encounter a story that you play. So, for instance, harvest has just ended. What will you do with your crops? Press 1 to sell them now. Press 2 to wait until the price goes higher to sell them. So after this, So interactivity is the idea behind this game. Interactivity, here we go, increases learning. And Wanji creates a safe space where people can role-play different scenarios. They can practice counterfactual thinking. And they can see the consequences of different decisions. And they can do this with the most remote populations, with the language that they already speak, with the tools they already have. We ran an experiment, and we found that, in fact, the treatment game did have an impact, measurable, on knowledge acquisition, on intended behavior, and also on brand recognition. So what now? Well, this conference is coming at a really serendipitous time because Wanji is rolling out into the world. So the business model is there. Partner NGOs are approaching us to help launch Wanji games. We just launched 3 in Uganda in 6 different languages, and we're developing 2 more in Malawi and also in Kenya. The scaling is also there. We have a partnership in place that could bring Wanji right now to 14 different nations in Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. But we're not there yet. We need 2 things, and MIT is really good to give us these 2 things. 1, we need education experts who can use this platform, help us use this platform to teach in a theory-driven way. And 2, we need to work with data scientists so that we can learn how to measure the impact that Wanji is having. We can take all this data on the back end, which right now is just noise, and make music out of it. So that's where we're at. With your partnership, in less than a year, we can have a financially self-sustaining platform creating impact at scale across the global south. Thank you.
Yep. Mark?
I can hear you.
Yes, now we are. Thanks very much. I've actually got a couple of questions. The first one is, you've been going for a couple of years. I'm keen to understand how many Wanji users there are to date and what sort of education programs you've been delivering to them. What sort of things have they been learning?
Right. So my day job is we work with media NGOs in Uganda. We have several television shows which are very popular. We've been doing this kind of on the side for a few years. So actually the first Wanji game just launched in May in Uganda. There was one on soil fertility, on chili farming, and on kind of basic financial literacy. And we've had 130,000 users so far in Uganda, unique users. And so the other ones we're developing now, one is about sexual and reproductive health access for young women. Another one is about family planning and connecting that to environmental issues. We really think livelihoods are an opportunity to teach core skills.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then the second question is, you're looking for support with data analysis and the like.
Yeah.
Can you give us some insights into the sort of data that you currently have that is available to be analysed?
Right. So we see the phone numbers of each individual user, and we see which games they choose, and we see each choice that they make through each game across different gameplays. So it's incredibly granular information, and I know within it is this incredible opportunity for M&E at a really high level, so we can see what works, what doesn't, and how to fine-tune these games. And right now we just can't make sense of it. And the partners are coming to us quicker than we have this, and they're not getting the product that can change lives in a scientific way at scale.
Kevin?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that this could be financially sustainable, but that it's based on toll-free numbers. So who's paying who?
Well, so we have a great technical partnership in place, and I just signed the MOU, where they make the deals with the telecoms, because they're competing with each other, the telecoms in developing nations. And so by having these services, it's value added. So, so the telecoms are paying for it, and also the voice interactive response platform is there. And we're going to be handling all the creative and also looking at the impact moving forward. They have plans to scale to 40 new countries in addition to the 14 existing ones in the next 2 years.
So the telcos are just investing in this to have a competitive edge?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
How long can you continue on that?
As long as telecoms compete for market share in the developing world, which is the foreseeable future.
We have about 15 seconds, so quickly.
Can you just explain how do you recognize the learning Is there a way of checking or certifying what they have learned?
And that's what we're missing right now and why we need your help, because it's right there in the numbers and we can't read it yet. So in all this big data that's coming in, and also in partnering with theory-driven education experts at the front end to drive that.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have wordscientist.org.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jacob Bronstein, and I am the director of wordscientist.org. And what we're doing is we're creating literacy tools for limited resource classrooms around the world. And the reality that these classrooms are facing is that money limits access to teacher training, student books, and curricula. So we think we can solve this by providing open access to literacy resources. So we've created a teacher training course, early reading books, and lesson guides. So our teacher training course is an online video course that's designed to teach educators, to demonstrate to educators how to do language and literacy activities for the classroom. And that ties directly into a library of classroom books. And these books are designed to be matched to students' reading stages because we know that that accelerates the learning process for students. And everything we're doing is very heavily focused on comprehension skills. So we designed it to really guide students through inference making, metacognitive thinking. These are key skills that are needed for the 21st century. And all of our books are available in multiple languages. Since many of the classrooms we're dealing with are in multilingual environments, this is critical. This helps give students the opportunity to hear stories and academic information in their home language. And every book has a companion lesson guide that's designed to guide an educator through teaching the fundamentals of early literacy. So in order for this to work, it has to be able to scale with or without access to the internet. So that means if all you have are mobile devices, you can download it as an app. If your school has like older laptops or computers, you can download this as software and copy it from computer to computer on like a USB drive. And if your school has no technology, you can print the resources you need and physically bring them into the classroom. So the next stage for us is to build assessment tools into our platform, which will help guide teachers in adjusting their instruction to individual students' needs even further. And where we think, and where Solve can really help us, and where the Solve community, I think, can play a big part, is helping connect us to implementation partners. So local NGOs and educational agencies that are already working with schools that could use these resources. Strategic partners that can help us further develop the software. So this can be schools like MIT or private companies like Atlassian that can donate engineering time. And of course, we need assistance with fundraising as well. So the reason we're competing here today is because around the world, there are millions of students who are eager to learn to read. And their teachers want to teach them, but lack the classroom resources needed to do that. And we think that by providing open access literacy tools that are professionally designed, like wordscientist.org, we can solve that problem. Thank you.
Lucy? Yeah, thank you for that. So who are your main competitors and what makes you different?
What makes us different is we're very heavily focused on the teachers. Our main competitors are mostly private companies, but they really can't reach these type of schools because they don't have the funds to buy their products. There are a lot of resources. They're scattered around the internet, but it's kind of up to the teacher to find them and put them together and hopefully understand what they are. What's great about this, what makes us unique, is that everything is in one place. It's designed by professionals, and it's ready to be used in any scenario.
Jacob, there are a lot of materials on the internet, as you said.
Yeah.
I see the curation problem, but it seems like you're planning to build original content, or do you expect to also license in third party?
Yeah, we're building original content because that way we don't have to deal with licensing, because we're giving it out for free, right? And we want to make sure that anybody can access it. So, we have a very serious team behind this, educators from around the world, professors from education departments, neuroscientists that are helping us design these materials. So we're creating them so that we have enough control to give them out like that.
Kevin?
Do you have examples of any schools that have adopted this curriculum?
Yeah, so So we have 5, thank you for asking that. So we have 5 pilot schools in Nepal that we're working with. And that's how we're developing this, is in coordination with them. So we're building it, we're testing it. This is a prototype. This is like our 2nd generation of the prototype. And those are the schools that we're in direct contact with. And then there's several hundred people every month that are using it that we're not in direct contact with.
Azita.
You're relying on existing IT infrastructure. You're not bringing that.
Right.
So how do you overcome that in, for instance, you mentioned Nepal, where that
Sure.
might be underdeveloped?
So because we're giving it out, because of the way we're distributing it, we can really push IT infrastructure as far as it can go. So whatever they have, so like if they have old computers that even don't have an internet connection, we're fine with them downloading it onto a USB and copying it. And if there really is no technology available in that school, which a lot of the schools we're dealing with are in that scenario, they can find access to like printers. It gives them the ability to do it. We call it like where there's a will, there's a way. Because it's like, okay, a motivated teacher can find somebody who can let them use their printer. Since most of these schools are in urban environments, it is possible to find the very basic technology they need to access the resources.
Great. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. I would just like us all to give a big round of applause to all of our finalists who just presented today. It was pretty fantastic. I also want to give a big round of applause to our judges who have taken time out of their day to be with us today as well. As a reminder, the solvers for this challenge will be announced during the closing plenary session, which will take place promptly at 4:30 p.m. We have 2 very exciting panels, followed by our announcements of our solvers for this challenge, as well as our brain health challenge. In addition, the Honourable Julie Bishop, Minister for Foreign Affairs for the Australian government, will be announcing the the recipients of the DFAT prize. And in addition, Mark Redding from the Atlassian Foundation will be announcing the recipients of the Atlassian prize. We hope to see you here in just a short 15 minutes. You can go grab some coffee, some water, and head back here, and we'll start promptly at 4:30. And the judges will come with me.
What's that? They won't fill my water. Yeah, exactly. Although I wonder if we're allowed to stop at the bathroom.
Yeah.
Is that forbidden?
I'll
Could
cover for you.
influence our scoring?
Yeah.